The call came in before the system made a sound. No ring, no flashing light, no soft click in my headset, just a voice. Hello? I froze with my hand still hovering over the keyboard. The screen in front of me was empty. No incoming line, no blinking indicator, just the usual call logs, sitting still like nothing had changed. But I could hear him, clear, close, breathing lightly into the line. For a second, I thought I had imagined it. Graveyard shifts do that to you. The quiet gets inside your head. It stretches time, makes small things feel louder than they are. Then the voice came again. Is anyone there? My chest tightened. I leaned forward, checking the system again. Line 1, idle. Line 2, idle. Every channel quiet. Sir, this is dispatch, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What's your emergency? There was a pause. Not a normal pause. Not the kind where someone is thinking or catching their breath. It felt deliberate, like he was waiting for something. You took a while to answer, he said. I swallowed. My eyes flicked back to the screen. Still nothing. I'm here now, I replied. Can you tell me your location? Another pause. Longer this time. Then I heard a faint sound in the background. Not traffic. Not wind. A soft tapping. Like fingers against wood. You already know where I am, he said quietly. A cold feeling slipped down my back. No, sir, I said. I need you to confirm your address. The tapping stopped. For a moment, there was only his breathing again. Slow, even, too calm. Then he said my name. Don't do that, Sarah. My hand slipped off the keyboard. For a second, I didn't move, didn't breathe. My eyes stayed locked on the screen, like it might suddenly explain what was happening. We're trained for panic, for chaos, for screaming callers and broken voices. We are not trained for this. How do you know my name? I asked. It came out softer than I meant it to. He didn't answer right away. I heard that tapping again. Slow, thoughtful, then a faint creak, like a chair shifting. I've been listening, he said. A small pulse started in my ears. I turned slightly in my chair, glancing behind me. The dispatch floor was almost empty. Just 2 other operators across the room, both with their headsets on, focused on their own screens. The overhead lights hummed softly. Nothing fell out of place. Still, something didn't sit right. Sir, I said, forcing control back into my voice, this line isn't showing in our system. I need you to tell me how you're calling. Another pause, then a quiet laugh. Not loud, not dramatic, just wrong. You always say that first, he said. My fingers curled slowly into the edge of the desk. What do you mean? No answer. Instead, I heard something shift on his end. A dull thud, then a faint dragging sound. My heart started to beat a little faster. Are you in danger? I asked. The question felt automatic, like muscle memory. But underneath it, something else was growing. A feeling I couldn't name yet. I think so, he said. His voice dropped just enough to make me lean closer. Can you describe what's happening? I asked. The cursor blinked on the screen, waiting for me to type something. Anything. But there was still no call. No number. No timestamp. No record. Nothing. You're sitting at your desk, he said slowly. Left hand near the keyboard. Right shoulder slightly lower. My breath caught. I didn't move. You turned around a few seconds ago, he continued, to check the room. I felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. Just a heavy awareness. Like the air had changed. I forced a small laugh. It sounded fake even to me. Sir, if this is some kind of joke. It's not, he said. The tapping stopped again. Silence filled the line. Then, you shouldn't turn around again. My throat went dry. Why? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. So long I thought the call had dropped. Then, softly, because I'm not behind you. Something inside my chest shifted. A slow, sinking feeling. Where are you? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded smaller. Closer. Closer than that, he said. A faint sound came through the line again. Not tapping this time. Breathing. But louder now. Closer to the microphone. I pressed my headset tighter against my ear without thinking. Sir, I'm going to need you to stay on the line, I said. Help is on the way. I didn't know why I said it. There was nowhere to send help. No location. No call trace. No proof this was even real. You say that every time, too, he whispered. Every time. The words sat there for a second, then they started to settle in. A slow realization began to form. What do you mean every time? I asked. No answer. Instead, I heard something new. A faint hum. Low. Mechanical. Familiar. My eyes shifted slowly to the right, to the small recorder sitting beside my monitor, the one that logs every call automatically. The red light was off. It should have been on. Every call gets recorded. Every single one. Except this one. Why isn't this call logging? I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. He didn't answer directly. You noticed that faster this time, he said. My stomach tightened. Faster. This time. How many times have we talked? I asked. My voice shook now. I couldn't hide it anymore. There was a long silence. Long enough for my thoughts to start racing. Long enough for something worse to creep in. Then, I don't think it matters anymore, he said. A soft creak followed. Closer. Much closer. I turned my head slightly toward the glass window beside my station. It reflected part of the room behind me. The empty chairs. The dim lights. And for a split second, I thought I saw something move. I blinked. Nothing. Just my reflection staring back. Wide-eyed. Pale. Don't look there, he said quickly. My heart jumped. Why? I whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, the breathing on the line got heavier. Uneven now, like something was wrong. Are you hurt? I asked. No response. Just that breathing. And then, a new sound. A faint clicking. Right behind me. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked. The room felt smaller. Quieter. The hum of the lights faded. The other operators disappeared from my awareness. All I could hear was that sound. Click. Pause. Click. Slow. Measured. Like something learning. Do you hear it? He asked. I couldn't answer. My mouth wouldn't move. Good, he whispered. The clicking stopped. For a moment, everything went still. Then he said something that didn't make sense. Not right away, but it would. You're about to lose the call, he said. My eyes snapped back to the screen. Still empty. Still nothing. I'm not disconnecting. I said quickly. You don't get to choose, he replied. The line crackled. Just a little. Like interference. Or distance. Wait, I said. Don't hang up. Tell me where you are. There was a pause. Then, softly, I'm where the calls go when they don't exist. The line went dead. No click. No tone. Just silence. I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for something to appear. A number. A log. Anything. But there was nothing. Like it had never happened. Slowly, I reached the recorder. Pressed rewind. Hit play. Static. Only static. I leaned back in my chair, my heart still beating too fast. Tried to breathe. Tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was a glitch. A cross signal. Something explainable. Something normal. Then my screen flickered. Just once. A new entry appeared at the top of the call log. No number. No timestamp. Just a single line of text. I stared at it, my chest tightening again. It read, connected, midnight, and beneath it, still active. The call never showed an end time. I kept staring at the screen, waiting for it to correct itself. Sometimes the system lagged. Sometimes entries took a few seconds to settle, but this one didn't change. Connected, midnight, still active, no number, no location, no duration, just active. I moved the mouse slowly, hovering over the line. My finger hesitated before clicking it. Nothing opened, no details, no audio file, no trace log, like the system refused to acknowledge it, but also wouldn't let it go. I leaned back, exhaling through my nose. My hands felt colder than they should have. Hey, Sarah. I flinched a little and turned. It was Imran from 2 desks over. He had one side of his headset off, looking at me with a tired half-smile. You good? He asked. You look like you just saw something. I forced a small smile back. Yeah, just weird glitch. He nodded like that made sense. System's been acting up all week. I wanted to believe that. Really, I did. What kind of glitch? He asked, turning his chair slightly toward me. I hesitated. Then I shook my head. Nothing. Just a call not logging right. He shrugged. Happens. For a second, the room felt normal again. The hum of the lights. The quiet clicking of keyboards. The soft murmur of voices through headsets. Grounded. Safe. Then my screen flickered. Just once. I looked back quickly. The same entry was there, but now it had changed. A new line appeared under it. Trace attempt. Failed. My stomach tightened. I hadn't tried to trace it yet. Slowly, I reached for the command panel and typed in the trace request anyway. My fingers moved slower than usual, like I already knew what would happen. Enter. The system processed for a second. Then, trace attempt. Failed. Again, I tried a deeper trace. The kind we use when a caller can't speak. The kind that digs into routing data. It took longer this time. The loading icon spun and spun, then stopped. Source, unknown. That didn't happen. Not here. Not with our system. Every call had a path. Even blocked numbers. Even burner phones. There was always something. But this, nothing. My throat felt tight again. I glanced at the call log one more time. The entry was still marked active, even though the line was dead. I reached up and tapped my headset lightly, like that would somehow reset things. Static answer back. Soft, faint, but there. I froze. The line wasn't dead. It had just gone quiet. Hello, I said carefully. No response, just that faint static. I leaned forward, lowered my voice. Sir, if you can hear me, I need you to respond. Silence. Then a soft inhale, right in my ear. I gripped the edge of the desk. You didn't hang up, I whispered. I told you, he said. His voice was quieter now, closer, like he wasn't speaking into a phone anymore, like he was right beside it. My eyes flicked to the glass window again, without thinking. Nothing there, just my reflection. You're still here, I said. Of course, he replied. A small pause. Then, you tried to trace me. My fingers went still. How do you know that? I asked. A soft clicking sound came through the line again, slower than before, more precise. I can hear the system, he said. I can hear what you do. That didn't make sense. You shouldn't be able to, I said. Another pause. Then, you shouldn't be able to hear me either. That landed harder than I expected. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. So I did what we're trained to do. I went back to control. Tell me where you are, I said. We can send someone. A faint hum filled the line again. Then, you already tried that. My chest tightened. I didn't dispatch anyone, I said. You did, he replied. Just not this time. The words slid into place slowly. Not this time. How many times has this happened? I asked. My voice was barely steady now. He didn't answer right away. Instead, something changed in the background. A new sound. Faint at first, then clearer. Typing. I looked down at my keyboard. My hands were still, but the sound continued. Tap, tap, tap. Slow. Uneven. Coming from the line. What is that? I asked. You, he said. My stomach dropped. That's not possible. Listen, he whispered. The typing got louder. More frantic now. Like someone making mistakes. Backspacing. Trying again. I stared at my screen. And then, text appeared. Not in the call log. In the report field I hadn't opened yet. Words began to fill the blank space. One letter at a time. I didn't touch anything. I didn't breathe. The sentence formed slowly. I can't see him, but I know he's here. My hand moved before I could stop it. I slammed the keyboard, hitting random keys. The text stopped. The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. Waiting. I pulled my hands back like I'd touched something hot. That wasn't me, I said. I know, he replied. The clicking sound returned. Closer now. Then who is it? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, you're about to look behind you again. My heart started to pound. I'm not, I said quickly. You always do, he whispered. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second. Don't turn. Don't turn. You think if you don't look, it won't be there, he continued. My breathing got shallow. That's not how this works. The room felt heavier, the air thicker. I could hear Imran laughing faintly somewhere behind me. Another operator talking calmly through a headset. Normal sounds, safe sounds, but they felt far away. Then how does it work? I asked. There was a pause. Long, stretching. Then it gets closer anyway. Something brushed against the back of my chair. Soft, barely there. I froze. Every muscle locked again. Did you feel that? He asked quietly. I couldn't answer. My throat refused to move. Yeah, he said. That part's new. New. My chest tightened harder. What do you mean new? I forced out. The line went quiet again. Too quiet. Then, you're lasting longer this time. My vision blurred slightly at the edges. Longer than what? I asked. No answer. Instead, a new sound filled the line. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not from the room. From the call. Each step echoed faintly, like it was walking through a hallway. A familiar kind of hallway. Hard floors. Hollow sound. I swallowed. Where are you walking? I asked. The footsteps stopped. Right outside something. A door, maybe. Then, I think I found you. My heart slammed against my ribs. That's not funny, I said, but my voice broke. I'm not joking, he replied. The handle turned. I heard it clearly. Metal shifting. A soft click. I stared at the door across the dispatch floor. It didn't move. Nothing changed. But the sound, it didn't match what I was seeing. It's not that door, he said softly. Of course he knew what I was looking at. Then where? I whispered. He didn't answer. The door on his end creaked open. Slow, dragging, revealing something I couldn't see, but could feel. A deeper silence poured through the line. Heavy, thick, like stepping into a place where sound doesn't belong. Then the typing started again, faster this time, more urgent. My screen flickered. The same report field reopened on its own. New word began to form under the last sentence. He's inside now. My chest tightened, so hard it hurt. Stop it, I said. I didn't know who I was talking to anymore. The typing didn't stop. Another line appeared. He's standing behind her. I shoved my chair forward, gripping the desk. I'm not turning around, I said. Silence. Then, you don't have to. My reflection in the glass shifted, just slightly, like something had moved where nothing should be. I stared at it, heart racing, breathing shallow, and then I saw it. Not clearly, not fully, just enough to know there was something standing behind me, and it wasn't there a second ago. The line crackled softly. I told you, he whispered. The cursor blinked again on the screen, and slowly one final line began to type. She sees it now. I didn't turn around. I don't know how I managed it, but I kept my eyes locked on the screen. She sees it now. The words just sat there, blinking at me, waiting for me to react, waiting for me to confirm something I didn't want to understand. Behind me, the room still sounded normal. Keyboards, low voices, someone coughing, nothing breaking, nothing screaming. That almost made it worse. Because if something was really there, why wasn't anyone else reacting? Don't look, he whispered in my ear. His voice felt closer than before. Not through the headset anymore. Not entirely. Is it still there? I asked. My lips barely moved. Yes, he said. I swallowed hard. My eyes burned from not blinking. What does it look like? There was a pause. A long one. Then, it doesn't like being described. A cold pressure built at the back of my neck. Not pain, not touch, just presence. Like standing too close to something you can't see. But your body knows it's there. I need to know, I said, if I'm going to help you. You can't help me, he cut in. That hit harder than I expected. Then why call me? I asked. Silence. Then, because you're the only one who stays. My chest tightened. What does that mean? You don't hang up, he said. Even when you should. I shook my head slightly. The line still active. I can't. You could, he whispered. You just don't. That wasn't true, was it? I glanced at the call controls. My finger hovered over the disconnect key. Just press it, end it, go back to normal. But something stopped me. A quiet thought, sitting just under everything else. If I hang up, does it stay? Don't, he said quickly. I froze. I wasn't. You were, he replied. That clicking sound came again. Closer, right behind my chair this time. I gripped the desk harder. Why shouldn't I hang up? I asked. No answer. Just breathing. Not his. Not mine. Something slower. Heavier. Right behind me. You hear that? He whispered. I nodded before realizing he couldn't see me. Yes, I said. That's it, learning, he said. My stomach dropped. Learning what? How you react. I shut my eyes for a second. When I opened them again, the reflection in the glass had shifted. Not a full movement. Just enough. The shape behind me, it felt taller now. Closer to my head. I leaned forward slightly without thinking, trying to create distance. It didn't help. You moved, he said. So did it. My breathing got shallow again. Why is this happening? I asked. No answer. Instead, check the time. I blinked. What? Check the time, he repeated. Slowly. I turned my eyes to the clock on the wall. 12:17 a.m. I looked back at my screen. The call log still read. Connected. Midnight. Still active. How long have we been talking? I asked. You tell me, he said. I checked the system clock again. Still 12:17. My chest tightened. That's not right, I said. It never is, he replied. A faint hum filled the room. At first, I thought it was the lights. Then I noticed something else. The other operators. They weren't moving. Imran was still sitting in the same position, head slightly turned, mouth half open like he was mid-sentence, but frozen, completely still. A cold wave ran through me. Why aren't they moving? I asked. You're not there right now, he said. My heart skipped. What does that mean? No answer. Instead, try to talk to them. My throat felt tight. Still, I tried. Imran. Nothing. No response. Not even a blink. They can't hear you, he said. Why not? I asked. Because you're still on the call. The words settled slowly. Too slowly. That doesn't make sense, I whispered. None of this does, he said. The breathing behind me got louder, closer to my ear now. Warm. Wrong. I flinched forward. Make it stop, I said. I can't, he replied. But you can. How? I asked. There was a pause. Then, you have to end it. My eyes flicked back to the disconnect key. But you said not to, I said. That was before, he replied. Before what? No answer. Just that breathing. And then, the clicking stopped. Everything stopped. Even the hum of the lights. The silence hit like pressure in my ears. Then my monitor flickered. Once. Twice. And went black. The entire room dropped into darkness. For a second, I couldn't see anything. Then the emergency lights kicked in. Dim red glow. Just enough to see shapes. Desks. Chairs. Still figures. Imran hadn't moved. None of them had. The system was down. Every screen dead. Except one. Mine. It flickered back to life. Alone. The call log still there. Still active. How is it still working? I asked. You're not using their system anymore, he said. A chill ran through me. Then what am I using? A long pause. Then, mine. The words settled in my chest like weight. What are you? I asked. No answer. Instead, the screen changed. The call log disappeared, replaced by something else. A black background, white text, lines of it, scrolling slowly, like a transcript. I lean closer, reading. Attempt 1, caller disconnects. Attempt 2, subject turns around. Attempt 3, subject leaves station. My breath caught. The lines kept coming. Attempt 7, subject screams. Attempt 9. Subject not recovered. My hand started to shake. What is this? I whispered. Your calls, he said. My chest tightened painfully. No, I said, that's not possible. It is, he replied calmly. You just don't remember them. The breathing behind me shifted. Lower now, closer to my shoulder. I couldn't move. Why don't I remember? I asked. Because you don't make it out, he said. The words hit like a drop. Cold, final. And this time, I asked. Silence. Then, this time is different. Hope flickered for a second. Why? I asked quickly. Another pause. Then, you lasted long enough to ask. The screen flickered again. The text stopped scrolling. One final line appeared. Current attempt. Active. My heart pounded in my ears. What happens if I hang up? I asked. You leave, he said. And you? I asked. A long silence followed, longer than any before. Then, I don't. Something inside me shifted, a realization forming. You've been here the whole time, I said slowly. Yes. You're not calling from outside, I continued. No. My throat tightened. Then where are you? The breathing behind me stopped. Completely. The silence that followed felt deeper, like something had stepped back or leaned closer. I'm where you go, he said softly. When you don't hang up. My hand moved toward the disconnect key again, slower this time, more certain. If I end the call, I said, this stops? Yes. And I go back? Yes. I hesitated, just for a second. What about the thing behind me? A pause. Then, it comes with you. My hand froze. Cold rushed through my chest. That's not fair, I whispered. It never was, he said. The screen flickered again. The emergency lights dimmed slightly. Time felt like it was slipping, breaking. If I don't hang up? I asked. You stay, he replied. And I asked. Another pause. Then, it learns faster. The words settled heavy in my mind. Two choices, both wrong. My finger hovered over the key. The room felt like it was closing in. The reflection in the glass shifted again. The shape behind me bending slightly. Closer to my face. Watching. Waiting. You're running out of time, he whispered. I took a slow breath. Tried to steady my hand. What happens to you if I hang up? I asked. Silence. Then, I'll be the next voice you hear. My chest tightened. What does that mean? You'll understand, he said. The cursor blinked on the screen one last time. Waiting. I pressed a key. The screen went black. The lights came back. The hum returned. Voices. Movement. Imran shifted in his chair like nothing had happened. I gasped softly, looking around. Everything normal. My screen rebooted. The system loaded. Call log empty. No active lines. No strange entries. Nothing. I pulled off my headset slowly. My hands were still shaking. Hey, Imran said, glancing over. You okay? I nodded quickly. Yeah, just power flicker. He shrugged. Happens. I looked back at my screen. Everything was clean. Too clean. For a moment, I almost believed it was over. Then, a soft click. Inside my headset. Still in my hand. I froze. Slowly, I lifted it back to my ear. Silence. Then, a faint breath. And a voice. Quiet. Familiar. Hello? The first call didn't say anything. Just breathing. Soft. Slow. Like someone holding the phone too close to their mouth. I waited a few seconds, listening. 911, what's your emergency? I said, no answer. Just that same breathing. I checked the caller ID. No number. Just unknown. That wasn't unusual. Blocked calls happen all the time. Sir? Ma'am? If you can hear me, I need you to speak. The breathing stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Like someone pressed pause. Then the line went dead. I stared at the screen for a second longer than I needed to. Something about it didn't feel right. Most silent calls have background noise. Traffic, TV, wind. This one had nothing. Just breathing, and then nothing at all. I logged it as a hang-up and moved on. 10 minutes later, it rang again. Same line, same unknown. I answered quicker this time. 911, what's your emergency? Silence. Then breathing. Same rhythm. Same distance from the mic. Like it was the exact same recording. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I felt a small knot form in my stomach. Can you hear me? I asked. Nothing. I leaned in slightly, listening harder. There was something else this time. Very faint. A sound behind the breathing. Not movement. Not a voice. Just space. Like the person wasn't in a room. More like they were somewhere empty. A hollow kind of quiet. Are you in danger? I asked. The breathing changed. Just a little. It got faster. Then, click. Call ended. I sat there for a second, staring at the blank screen again. 2 silent calls from the same unknown line in under 15 minutes. That was enough. I flagged it and opened a trace. The system worked for a few seconds, then returned a result. Location, partial. That was strange. Partial usually means weak signal or poor connection, but this wasn't mobile ping. It looked incomplete, like part of the data was missing. I ran it again. Same result. Partial location. Edge of a rural zone just outside the city. No registered address. No subscriber data. Just a patch of land marked with an old property ID. I leaned back slightly, staring at the map. There was a structure marked there, but it didn't have a current listing. No utilities. No active records. Just an outline. Faded, like it hadn't been updated in years. I felt that small knot tighten. Hey! I called out to Imran. You ever get repeated silent calls from the same unknown line? He didn't even look up. All the time. Kids messing around. This one's different, I said. He shrugged. They're all different until they're not. I didn't respond. Instead, I watched the screen, waiting. It didn't take long. The 3rd call came in less than a minute later. Same line, same unknown. This time, I didn't say anything right away. I just listened, breathing. Closer now, louder, like whoever it was had leaned into the phone. I felt a slight chill run through me. 911. I said, finally, you need to speak. The breathing stopped again. Then, a sound, not from the caller, from behind them. A faint thud, like something hitting wood. My fingers tightened slightly. Did something fall? I asked. No answer. Another sound, dragging, slow, across a surface. Then silence. Complete silence. No breathing. No movement. Nothing. The line stayed open. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then a whisper. So faint I almost missed it. Hello? My heart skipped. Yeah, I'm here. I said quickly. Can you tell me what's going on? No response. I leaned forward again. Hello? Nothing. The line went dead. I sat back slowly. That was enough. 3 calls. Same number. Same behavior. And now a voice. Barely there, but real. I marked it as a priority check. Pulled up the location again. That same empty patch of land. That same faded structure. No address. Just coordinates. I hesitated for a second. Then I keyed the radio. Unit 12, copy? A crackle. Then a voice. Unit 12, go ahead. Officer Malik. Calm. Steady. Always reliable. I've got a possible welfare check. I said. Multiple silent 911 calls from an unregistered line. Partial location only. Go ahead with details. I read off the coordinates. There was a short pause on his end. Dispatch. That area is mostly empty, he said. Old farmland. There's a structure marked, I replied. No active records. Another pause. Then, all right, I'll head out. Relief flickered for a second. Routine. Handled. That's Unit 12 en route, he added. I logged it. Watched his GPS marker begin to move across the map. Slow at first, then steady. I leaned back slightly, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was probably nothing. A bad connection. Someone messing around. Maybe an old line still active somehow. It would be over in 10 minutes. 15 at most. I glanced at the call log again. 3 entries, all from the same unknown source. All marked incomplete. Something about that word stuck with me. Incomplete, like the calls hadn't finished. Like something had interrupted them. My screen flickered slightly. I blinked. Probably just the system again. I checked Unit 12's progress. Halfway there, the map zoomed in slightly as he got closer. The area looked wrong. Not dangerous. Just empty. Too empty. No nearby houses. No roads branching off. Just a thin dirt path leading to that one structure. And then nothing for miles. I felt that knot again. Tighter now. Unit 12 status? I asked. Still en route. Malik replied. Roads rough. His voice sounded normal. Grounded. That helped. A little. I watched his marker inch closer. Closer. Then it stopped. Right at the edge of the property. Dispatch, I'm here, he said. Copy, I replied. What do you see? There was a pause. Longer than I expected. Then, structure is still standing, he said. Looks abandoned. Any signs of activity? I asked. Another pause. Then, hard to tell. No lights. I leaned forward slightly. Can you approach and make contact? A small crackle. Yeah, moving in now. I watched his marker shift slowly. A few meters at a time. Closer to the center of the property. Then it stopped again. Unit 12. No response. Just static. My fingers tightened on the desk. Unit 12, do you copy? A few seconds passed. Then, yeah. His voice came through, but softer. Different. Go ahead, I said. I'm at the door, he said. There was something off in his tone. Not fear. Not yet. Just hesitation. Do you see anyone? I asked. No, he replied. A pause. Then, but I hear something. My chest tightened. What do you hear? Silence. Then, breathing. The words settled heavy in my ears. Same as the calls. Same rhythm. Same distance. I leaned closer to the mic. Unit 12. Proceed with caution. Announce yourself. There was a faint shift of movement. Then I heard his voice, louder now, away from the radio. Police, if anyone's inside, make yourself known. The sound echoed slightly, like the space inside was larger than it should be. Then, nothing. No response. No movement. Just silence. Unit 12. I said. A few seconds passed. Then, I'm going in. My stomach dropped. Wait, I said quickly. Backup is... Too late. I heard the door creak, open through his mic. Slow, dragging. The same sound from the call. My grip tightened. Unit 12, hold position. I said, no response. Just footsteps now. Inside, each step echoing. Slow, measured. Then, the radio picked up something else. Not his voice. Not movement. Just breathing. Closer to his mic now. Louder. And then, it stopped. Dead silence. Unit 12. I said, nothing. The line stayed open. But he didn't speak. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. I stared at the screen, waiting for his marker to shift. It didn't. It stayed perfectly still. Inside that structure, right at the center. Then my call log updated. A new entry appeared. Same unknown line. Incoming. I felt my chest tighten as it started ringing. Slow. Steady. Like it had been waiting. I answered, without thinking. 911, what's your emergency? For a second, there was nothing. Then, breathing. But this time, it wasn't the same. It was heavier, rougher, and underneath it, I heard something else. A voice. Faint. Struggling. Dispatch. My heart dropped. Unit 12. I said quickly. The breathing got louder. Closer. Like it was covering the voice. Don't send. The line cracked. Then, silence. And the call didn't disconnect. The breathing didn't stop. That's the first thing I remember clearly. It stayed on the line after his voice disappeared. After that broken, don't send, cut off mid-word. Just breathing. Heavy now. Wet. Too close to the mic. Unit 12, respond. I said, no answer. The breathing dragged in and out, slow and uneven, like something was learning how to do it. Unit 12, do you copy? I tried again. Nothing. I looked at his GPS. Still inside the structure. No movement. Not even a flicker. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I opened the channel monitor, checking if maybe his mic was stuck open. It wasn't. It was live, active, transmitting, but he wasn't speaking. Malik, I said, softer this time, if you can hear me, tap something, make a sound. The breathing paused, just for a second. Hope flickered. Then it came back, louder, like it had moved closer to the radio. My chest tightened. Okay, I whispered to myself. Okay. Think. Routine. Protocol. Unit 12, I'm dispatching backup, I said, forcing my voice steady. Stay where you are. No response. Just that same breathing. I reached for the radio again. Unit 9, copy? Static. Then, Unit 9, go ahead. Respond to Unit 12's location. Possible distress. Unknown situation. A pause. How bad? Unit 9 asked. I glanced at the screen, at the frozen marker, at the open line filled with breathing. I don't know. I said honestly. He's not responding. Copy. En route. Relief came for a second. Just a second. Then the breathing changed. It got sharper. Shorter inhales. Faster. Like it noticed something. Did you hear that? Unit 9 said suddenly. My grip tightened. Hear what? I asked. The radio, he said. That breathing. I froze. You can hear it? I asked. Yeah, he replied. Sounds like someone's right on his mic. A cold wave moved through me. So it wasn't just me. Stay alert, I said. Do not approach alone. Backup is still. The breathing cut off. Completely. Silence filled the line. So sudden it made my ears ring. Unit 12. I said, nothing. I leaned forward, listening, waiting. Then a new sound, very faint, a scrape, like something shifting on the floor. Unit 9 spoke again, quieter now. I'm about 2 minutes out, he said. Roads narrow. Copy, I replied. My eyes stayed locked on the screen. The GPS marker didn't move. Still in the same spot, right in the center of that structure. Unit 12, if you can hear me, give any signal. I said, nothing. Then a breath, but not the same one. This one was weaker, shaking. Dispatch. My heart jumped. Malik, I said quickly. The breath came again, struggling. Can't see. The words broke apart, like he was trying to speak through something. What can't you see? I asked. Silence. Then the heavy breathing returned, louder than before, like it pushed his voice away. Dispatch. Fainter now. Not alone. My stomach dropped. Who's with you? I asked. No answer. The breathing grew deeper, slower, controlled, like something had taken over the line again. Unit 9 came back on. I'm at the turnoff, he said. I can see the structure. Hold position. I said immediately. Why? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know how to explain it. Because nothing I was hearing made sense. Because if I told him what I thought, he might still go in. And I didn't want that. Just wait, I said. Do not enter yet. A pause. Copy, he said. The line stayed quiet for a moment. Then a soft thud from Malik's radio. Then another, closer, like something being dropped or dragged. Unit 12. I said, no response. The breathing started again, but now it sounded different. Not just heavy, layered, like two breaths overlapping. Out of sync, my chest tightened. Unit 9. You still have eyes on the building? I asked. Yeah, he said. Front doors open. That hadn't been reported before. When did it open? I asked. I don't know, he said. It's just open. The breathing on the line grew louder, filling my headset. Do you see Unit 12? I asked. A pause. Then, no. My heart sank. His vehicle's here. Unit 9 continued. Light still on. I stared at the map again. The marker hadn't moved. He should be inside, I said. Another pause. Then, I hear something. The words came slower now, more careful. What do you hear? I asked. Silence on his end. Then, breathing. My fingers tightened, same as Malik, same as the calls. Is it coming from inside? I asked. Yeah, he said quietly. The line filled with it again. That same layered breathing. Now louder, closer, on both channels. Malik's open mic. Unit 9's voice picking it up in real time, like it was everywhere at once. Do not enter, I said again. Wait for backup. But even as I said it, I heard it. Footsteps. From Unit 9's end. Slow. Cautious. I'm just checking the doorway, he said. My chest tightened. Unit 9. I'm not going in, he added quickly. His footsteps stopped, right at the entrance. Describe what you see, I said. There was a long pause. Too long. Then, it's dark. I waited. Anything else? Another pause. Then, I think there's someone inside. My heart skipped. Where? I asked. I can't tell, he said. It's too dark. The breathing surged suddenly. Louder. Closer. Right against the mic. Unit 9 flinched audibly. Did you hear that? He said. Yes, I replied. That's not coming from the radio, he whispered. My stomach dropped. Then where? I asked. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was barely there. Behind me, the words hit like a weight. Turn around slowly, I said. His breathing picked up. Real now. Panicked. I don't, he started. Do it, I said. A pause. Then I heard movement. Fabric shifting. Boots scraping lightly. And then, nothing. No words. No reaction. Just silence. Unit 9. I said. No answer. The breathing filled the line again. But now, it wasn't just from Malik's radio. It was from both. Perfectly synced. In and out. Slow. Measured. Like whatever it was breathing through them. Unit 9 respond. I said, nothing. My hands started to shake. 2 officers. Both on scene. Both silent. Both still transmitting. The same sound. I looked at the map again. 2 markers. One inside the structure. One at the entrance. Neither moving. My screen flickered. Just once. Then the call log updated. A new entry. Same unknown line. Incoming. Again. My chest tightened. I didn't want to answer it, but I already knew I would. I pressed the key. 911, what's your emergency? For a second, there was nothing. Then, breathing. Of course. But underneath it, something new. 2 voices. Faint. Broken. Dispatch. Help. My throat tightened. Malik? Unit 9. I said. The breathing surged, drowning them out. Don't, one of them whispered. It hears, the other said. The line crackled. Then both voices stopped. At the same time, the breathing didn't. It stayed. Steady, calm, controlled. And then, very softly, something else joined it. A third breath, right between them. Perfectly in rhythm, like it had always been there. And I just hadn't noticed. The map said he was moving, but the radio said he wasn't. I kept staring at the screen. Try and make sense of both at the same time. Unit 12's marker had shifted, just slightly at first. A few meters to the left, then back again. Then forward, then back. A small loop. Unit 12. I said, no answer. Just breathing. Still there. Still heavy. Still wrong. I leaned closer to the monitor, zooming in on the map. The structure sat in the middle of an empty field. One narrow dirt road leading in. Nothing around it for miles. There was nowhere to go. No block to circle. And yet his marker kept moving. Slowly, tracing a shape. A loop. Again. And again. Unit 12. Confirm your position. I said. The marker completed another circle. Same size. Same path. Perfect. Too perfect. I checked the GPS data. Speed, 3 kilometers per hour. Direction, constantly changing, but not randomly. Pattern, repeating. My chest tightened. Unit 9, do you see Unit 12 moving? I asked. Silence. Then, no. His voice sounded distant, like he wasn't fully there anymore. His vehicle is still parked, he continued. Lights are on. Engines off. I stared at the map. The marker kept moving. Another loop. Then what's moving? I whispered. No one answered. The breathing on the line grew slightly louder, like it reacted to question. I pulled up the signal strength. Full. Perfect connection. That didn't make sense either. Out there, reception should be weak. But this was cleaner than anything in the city. Unit 12, if you can hear me, stop moving, I said. The marker didn't stop. It completed another circle. Same path, same speed, like it was following something, or being guided. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I opened the motion log. Every movement recorded, every shift tracked. The pattern filled the screen. Loop after loop after loop. No deviation, no hesitation, just repetition. How long has he been doing this? I asked. No one replied, because I already knew, since the moment the signal started again, since the moment his voice disappeared. I scrolled back. The loops continued, unbroken, no gaps, no pauses, even during the silence, even during the breathing. Even now, Unit 9, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Do not enter the structure. A pause. Then, I already did. My heart dropped when I asked. No answer. The line crackled. Then, I don't remember. The words felt wrong. Heavy, like they didn't belong to him. What do you see? I asked. Silence. Then, walls. I frowned slightly. What kind of walls? Another pause. Longer. The same. My grip tightened. Same as what? I asked. No answer. The breathing surged again. Louder. Now filling both channels. Malik's open mic. Unit 9's. Perfectly synced. In. Out. In. Out. Like one thing breathing through two bodies. I looked back at the map. Unit 12's marker kept looping. Unchanged. Unstoppable. Then something shifted. The loop got smaller. Just slightly. I leaned in closer. Watching. Another loop. Smaller again. My chest tightened. Why is it tightening? I whispered. No one answered. But the pattern continued. Each loop smaller than the last. Drawing inward. Toward a center point. A point that wasn't marked on the map. A point that didn't exist. Unit 12 stopped. I said again. The marker ignored me. Another loop. Smaller. Closer. Then it stopped. Dead center. The breathing cut off. Complete silence. My ears rang. For a second, everything felt still. Frozen. Then the radio cracked. A voice came through. Clear. Too clear. Dispatch. I sat up straight. Malik, I said. A pause. Then, yes. Relief hit fast. Too fast. You went silent. I said. Are you okay? Another pause. Then, I'm fine. Something about the way he said it. Flat. Empty. Like he was reading it. Confirm your status. I said. I'm fine, he repeated. The same tone. The same pacing. Exactly the same. My stomach tightened. Where are you right now? I asked. Silence. Then, here. The word echoed slightly, like it wasn't coming from open air, like it was inside something. Where's here? I asked. No answer. The line stayed open. Then, the breathing returned, but different, slower, calmer, almost satisfied. My eyes snapped back to the map. The marker hadn't moved. Still at the center. Still. Unit 12, I need you to step outside. I said. A pause. Then, no. The word came sharper, more certain. Why not? I asked. Silence. Then, it's better here. A cold feeling spread through my chest. What do you mean? I asked. No answer. Instead, the map flickered, just once. Then something new appeared. A second marker, right next to the first. Same ID, Unit 12. I blinked, checked again. Two markers, both labeled Unit 12, both in the same place. My breath caught. Unit 12. How many of you are there? I asked. Silence. Then, all of us. The words hit like a drop. Heavy. Cold. What does that mean? I asked. No answer. The breathing layered again. More than before. Not just two. Not just three. Many. Soft. Overlapping. Perfectly in sync. My screen flickered again. More markers appeared. One by one. All labeled Unit 12. All stacked on top of each other. Dozens. Maybe more. Each one slightly offset. Like copies. Like echoes. My chest tightened. Unit 9, get out of there. I said quickly. No response. Unit 9, respond. Silence. Then, a new voice. Not Malik. Not Unit 9. Something else. Dispatch. Faint. Distant. Who is this? I asked. Don't send. It whispered. My heart pounded. Don't send who? I asked. No answer. The line filled with breathing again. Louder. Closer. Surrounding. Then the map shifted. The markers began to move again. All of them. At once. Spreading outward. Breaking the loop. Breaking the center. Moving in different directions. Fast. Too fast. Across the empty field. Off the map. Into places that didn't exist. I watched, frozen. Each marker moving with purpose. Like they knew where they were going. Like they were leaving. Or coming. My throat went dry. Where are you going? I whispered. No answer. Then, one marker stopped. Right at the edge of the map. The others kept moving. But that one stayed. I zoomed in. The coordinates loaded slowly. Then, updated. Location, dispatch center. My heart stopped. I stared at it, waiting for it to change. It didn't. Unit 12, I whispered. The radio crackled. Then, dispatch. The voice was clearer now. Closer. Too close. Where are you? I asked. A pause. Then, almost there. My grip tightened on the desk. You're not here, I said. Silence. Then, a soft sound behind me. A footstep. I froze. Didn't turn. Didn't breathe. Another step. Slow. Measured. Familiar. The radio stayed open. The breathing returned. Right in my ear. And behind me. At the same time. You should have stopped me, he whispered. I closed my eyes for a second. Then opened them. The map still showed that marker. Right on top of my location. Unit 12, I said slowly. But I already knew. The voice on the radio answered. I made it back. The screen flickered. The markers disappeared. All of them, except one. Still labeled Unit 12. Still active. Still connected. And then, a new entry appeared in the call log. No number. No timestamp. Just a single line. Return to sender. I didn't want to press it. My finger just hovered over the key, shaking slightly. 10 to 42. End of watch. Officer down. Gone. We don't use it lightly. We don't use it unless we're sure. And I wasn't sure. Not even close. But the system was. The screen had already updated. Unit 12 status. Unresponsive Unit 9 status. Unresponsive. And beneath that, a blinking prompt. Confirm designation. I stared at it, my chest tight. The radio was still open, still breathing, still there. How can he be gone if I can still hear him? I whispered. No one answered. Imran had walked over at some point. I didn't even notice when. He stood beside my desk now, staring at my screen. You need to call it, he said quietly. I shook my head. He's still transmitting. Imran didn't look at me. His eyes stayed on the monitor. That's not him, he said. The words felt heavier than they should have. What do you mean? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned closer to my headset, listening. The breathing filled the air between us. Slow, steady, wrong. Imran pulled back slightly. His face had changed. Not panic, not fear, just understanding. I've heard this before, he said. My stomach dropped. What? He nodded toward the radio. That's not a live transmission. I frowned. Then what is it? A pause. Then an echo. The words settled in my chest. Cold. What does that even mean? I asked. Before he could answer, the radio cracked. A voice pushed through the breathing. Dispatch. I snapped forward. Unit 12. I said quickly. The breathing surged, almost swallowing the voice. Don't. It whispered. Then it was gone again. Just the breathing left. Imran shook his head slowly. You hear that? He asked. Yes, I said. That's not a person trying to talk, he said. My chest tightened. Then what is it? He hesitated. Then, it's something trying to remember how. The room felt colder suddenly. The lights above us hummed louder. Or maybe I just noticed them more. I looked back at the screen. The prompt was still there, blinking, waiting. Confirm designation. If I pressed it, it would be official. Final. No going back. What happens if I don't? I asked. Imran didn't hesitate this time. It stays open. I swallowed. And if it stays open? He looked at me, really looked. Then, so does whatever that is. The breathing on the radio got louder, like it heard him, like it understood. My hand moved before I could stop it. I pressed the key. The system responded instantly. Unit 12. Mark 10 to 42, Unit 9. Mark 10 to 42. A soft tone played. Quiet. Final. For a second, nothing happened. The breathing stopped. Completely. Silence filled the room. Relief hit me hard. Too fast. Too easy. I leaned back slightly. Letting out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. It's over, I said. Imran didn't respond. I turned to look at him. He was still staring at the headset. Waiting. What? I asked. He didn't answer. He just tilted his head slightly. Listening. I followed his gaze. The headset sat in its cradle now. Still. Silent. Normal. Then, a soft click. The line reopened. The breathing came back. Stronger. Closer. Right in my ear again. My relief shattered instantly. No. I whispered. That shouldn't happen. Imran stepped back slightly. You closed the call, he said. I did, I replied. Then why is it still active? He asked. I looked at the screen. The call log had updated again. A new entry. No number. No timestamp. Just connected. My chest tightened. That's not possible, I said. The breathing continued. Steady. Calm. Almost patient. Like it was waiting for something. Then, the radio crackled. A voice came through. Clear. Too clear. Dispatch. I froze. It sounded like Malik. Exactly like him. Unit 12. I said slowly. A pause. Then, yes. Imran shook his head immediately. No, he whispered. That's not him. How do you know? I asked. He pointed at the screen. I followed his finger. Unit 12. Mark 10 to 42. Dead. Official. Final. But the voice continued. I'm outside, it said. My heart skipped. Outside? Where? I asked. The building. It replied. I made it out. My throat went dry. That's not possible, I said. Silence. Then, why not? The question felt wrong. Too simple. Too curious. Like it didn't understand the answer. Because you were marked 10 to 42, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, what does that mean? The breathing returned, layered under the voice. My chest tightened. It means you're gone, I said. Silence. Then, oh, the word came soft, almost thoughtful. Then, I don't feel gone. The lights flickered slightly. Just once. I felt something shift in the room. Not visible, not physical, just presence. You need to step away from the building, I said quickly, even though I knew it wasn't real, even though I knew it couldn't be. Why? It asked. Because it's not safe, I said. A pause. Then, I brought it with me. My heart stopped. What? I whispered. The breathing got louder, not just in the headset. Around me, faint, but there. I didn't want to, the voice continued. It followed. My grip tightened on the desk. Where are you now? I asked. Silence. Then, closer. The word echoed slightly, like it came from somewhere inside the room. Not the radio, not the system. Here. Imran stepped back again. You hear that, he whispered. I nodded slowly. The breathing surrounded us now. Soft, everywhere, like the walls were doing it, like the room itself was alive. You need to shut it down, Imran said. How? I asked. The system, he replied. Kill the board. My eyes snapped to the controls. If I shut it down completely, everything would go offline. Every call, every unit, everything. But if I didn't, the voice spoke again. I can see you. I froze. Through what? I asked. No answer. Then the screen flickered. The camera feed opened, without me touching anything. Security camera. Front entrance. The image loaded slowly. Grainy. Dark. Then a figure. Standing just outside the door. Still, facing the camera. My breath caught. Is that him? Imran asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because something was wrong. The figure wasn't moving, not breathing, not shifting, just standing there, too still. The radio crackled. I'm here, the voice said. The figure on the screen didn't react, didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. You need to let me in, the voice continued. My chest tightened. No, I said. A pause. Then, why not? The question came again. Same tone, same curiosity, because it didn't understand, because it needed to learn. You're not him, I said. Silence. Then the words hung in the air, heavy, cold. The breathing grew louder, faster, like it was getting impatient. You opened the line, it said. You sent me there. Each word landed harder, and now I'm back. The figure on the screen twitched, just slightly. My heart jumped. You see me now, it whispered. The lights flickered again, longer this time. The room dimmed. The breathing filled everything. And then, the door handle on the camera feed moved. Slowly, turning. I stared at it, frozen. The radio stayed open. The voice still there. Closer now. Dispatch, it said softly. You need to answer. The caller said hello. And it wasn't me who answered. I felt before I understood it. That small delay where my brain goes, wait, that wasn't right. I was already leaning toward the mic, ready to speak. 911, what's your... But the line had already been taken. Go ahead. My hand froze midair. The voice in my headset sounded calm, professional, clear, exactly like mine. I didn't speak. I just listened. Can you tell me your emergency? The voice continued. Same tone I use. Same pacing. Even the slight pause between words. My chest tightened slowly. I checked the console. The call had just connected. No delay. No overlap. There was no way anyone else could have picked it up before me. Hello? The caller said again. Confused this time. I'm here, the voice replied. Not me. Still not me. I pulled my headset slightly away from my ear, like that would somehow change what I was hearing. It didn't. Are you able to speak? The voice asked. I looked around. The room was quiet, just the low hum of systems. A few operators at their stations. No one was looking at me. No one reacting. Is this a joke? The caller asked. There was a pause. Then, no, the voice said softly. Something about that word felt off. Subtle, small, but wrong. I leaned back toward the mic. This is dispatch. I said quickly, can you hear me? Silence. Then the caller replied, yeah, I can hear you. My stomach dropped. Who did I just talk to then? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know. Because I was still hearing it. Still hearing that other voice breathing lightly in my headset. Listening. Waiting. Sir, stay on the line. I said, what's your emergency? There was a pause. Then, I think someone's in my house. My focus snapped back. Real call, real situation. Okay, I said. Where are you right now? In my bedroom, he whispered. Doors locked. Good, I said. Stay there. Do not come out. My fingers started moving across the keyboard automatically. Logging, tracking, normal, grounded, then don't lock it. The words came through the line again. Not from the caller, from the other voice. My hand stopped. What? The caller asked. I didn't say anything. I replied quickly. Yes, you did, he said. You said don't lock it. My chest tightened. No, I said, that wasn't me. Silence. Then who was it? The question hung between us. Heavy. I didn't answer. Instead, I focused on control. Stay in your room. I said firmly, help is on the way. Okay, he whispered. I dispatched a unit. Watched the marker light up. Movement on the map. Routine. But my headset still felt wrong. Like something else was sitting in the line with us. Listening. Can you hear anything outside your room? I asked. There was a pause. Then, footsteps. My grip tightened. Where? I asked. In the hallway. The voice shook slightly now. Real fear. Stay quiet, I said. Do not make any noise. The caller's breathing got heavier. Faster. And then, open the door. The words came again. Not from him. From the other voice. Clear. Calm. Right in my ear. My stomach dropped. Don't listen to that. I said quickly. I didn't say anything, the caller replied. I know, I said. Just ignore it. Silence. Then, it sounds like you. My throat went dry. I'm still here, I said. Focus on my voice. A small pause. Then, there's someone outside the door. My heart skipped. Stay back, I said. Do not open it. I'm not, he whispered. The footsteps got louder. Through the line, through his mic. Slow, dragging slightly, coming closer. Then, a knock. Soft. 3 times. I held my breath. Who is it? The caller whispered. I didn't answer. Because I already knew. Because I was hearing it too. The knock came again. Same rhythm. Then, open the door. The voice. My voice. But wrong. Don't. I said immediately. Do not open it. I'm not, he said. Another knock. Closer this time. Louder. The caller's breathing turned sharp. Panicked. It knows I'm in here, he whispered. Stay quiet, I said. Then, dispatch. I froze. The voice had changed. Still mine, but clearer, stronger, like it wasn't trying to copy anymore, like it had learned enough. Yes, I said before I could stop myself. A pause. Then, you're doing it again. My chest tightened. Doing what? I asked. No answer. The caller spoke over it. It's turning the handle. My heart slammed against my ribs. Step back, I said. I am, he whispered. The handle rattled. Slow at first, then harder, more force, like something testing it. The caller let out a shaky breath. Please, just send someone faster. They're on the way, I said. But even as I said it, I heard something else. Through the line, not from his side, from mine, a faint sound. Behind me, a chair shifting. Soft, barely there. I turned slightly, just enough to check. Nothing. Everyone's still at their stations. No one near me. I turned back. The line was still active. The caller still breathing. The handle still rattling. And the other voice, still there. You should turn around. I froze. My fingers tightened on the desk. No, I whispered. You didn't last time either, it said. My heart skipped. What do you mean? I asked. Silence. Then the handle stopped. Everything stopped. No footsteps. No movement. Just quiet. Too quiet. Is it gone? The caller asked. I didn't answer right away. I was listening, waiting. Then a new sound. From inside his room. A soft shift. Like something moving behind him. My chest tightened. Are you alone? I asked. A pause. Then I thought I was. My grip tightened. Turn around slowly, I said. I don't want to, he whispered. I know, I said, but you need to. The silence stretched. Then, fabric loosened, breath caught, and then, there's someone here. My heart dropped. Describe them, I said. No answer, just breathing, shaking. Then, it's you. The words hit like a cold wave. What? I said. It's you, he repeated. You're standing in the corner. My throat went dry. That's not possible, I said. I can see you, he whispered. The line crackled. Then the other voice came through again. Calm, clear, right beside my ear. I told you not to turn around. My breath caught. Slowly, I lifted my eyes toward the glass reflection beside my desk. And for a split second, I saw it. Someone standing behind me, wearing my face, smiling just a little too wide. Then the line went dead, and I realized I never heard it disconnect. The first call came in just after midnight. Routine stuff. Traffic lights out, minor accidents. But I noticed the odd thing immediately. Unit 7 reported a driver going the wrong way. Standard procedure. I gave directions, but the officer's voice cut in before I could finish. No, go north on Elm, not south, they said. I froze. That was my voice. Same tone, same rhythm. The tiny pause I always left between sentences. My fingers hovered over console. Unit 7, did you hear me? Yes, came the reply. Hesitation, confusion. I just followed the directions you just gave. I shook my head, tried to clear it. Maybe fatigue. Maybe someone else was playing a prank. But the map didn't lie. They weren't where I told them to go. They were turning down a dead-end alley I hadn't even mentioned. The next call was worse. Unit 12 reported a domestic disturbance on Cedar, but their GPS pinged them at Willow, a block over, circling in loops. I tried giving new instruction. Head east on Oak, and before I could finish, the same calm, clipped voice interrupted. No. Continue circling. Wait for further instructions. I froze again. My headset buzzed faintly with static, but the line didn't cut. I replayed the words in my head. Wait for further instructions. That was not something I would ever say. Ever. Dispatch, please confirm. Who gave those directions? Unit 12 asked, tension sharpening their voice. I don't know. I stammered. I glanced around the room. Operators were calm, typing away, eyes on screens. No one near me. No one on the floor. The calls kept coming. Each time, my voice or version of it gave impossible instructions. Take the bridge, stop short, turn around now. Units reported doors locked, hazards ahead, debris in the middle of the road, none of which were there. And every time, the officers followed the directions. I checked the logs. Nothing unusual. No new users logged in. Nothing in the system that could explain the misdirection. And yet, it kept happening. By the third hour, I started noticing patterns. The voice didn't just copy me, it improved. Each instruction sounded more precise, more confident, even when it contradicted reality. One officer reported a car accident that hadn't happened yet, exactly where the voice said it would be. My hands shook as I tried to override it. Unit 9, ignore previous instructions. Go west on Maple. Yes, west on Maple, they echoed, but the GPS still showed them turning back toward Elm. The voice didn't hesitate. It didn't need to. It sounded patient, deliberate, inhuman. I ran every diagnostic I knew. Network checks, server logs, line traces. Nothing. Yet the interference continued, precise, intentional, and terrifying. I started writing down every instruction as it came. At first, random chaos. Then patterns emerged. Streets, times, turn, coordinates. It formed a sequence, a grid. Something was mapping, something alive, and aware of our movements. Unit 5 called from a bridge over the river. Dispatch the directions. I'm on the wrong bridge. The waters. Stop. Pull over. Get off the bridge. I shouted. Too late, they whispered, their voice cracking. The static of the line seemed thicker, heavier. I could almost hear a dragging sound, faint but persistent. I ran to the window, peering out over the city streets. Silent, empty, Too quiet. My gut twisted as I realized it wasn't about the units. It was about me. Another call came in. Dispatch, this is Unit 3. Who's giving these directions? Before I could speak, the voice answered in my tone. You're doing fine. Continue. The officer stammered. I'm not. Continue. It said again, calm, unwavering. I stared at the console, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Whoever, or whatever, was doing this didn't just mimic. It predicted. It guided. It watched. The room felt smaller. The fluorescent lights flickered. I could almost feel behind me a presence in the room, invisible, patient, studying my every movement. Unit 12 reported a new hazard. A car stopped in the middle of the intersection on Lincoln. I looked at the camera feeds. Nothing. Not a single vehicle. Dispatch, are you seeing this? The officer asked. I don't see it, I said. My voice sounded strange to me, higher, taut. My pulse quickened. The voice spoke again, cutting through the static. It's real. Follow my instructions. I shook my head. No. Stop. Ignore it. It laughed. Not loud, not human. Just a subtle vibration. A tremor in my headset, and the officers obeyed. All of them. I tried isolating the frequency. Nothing. Blocking channels. The voice adapted instantly. Instructions came from multiple lines simultaneously. Sometimes over my own voice, sometimes under it. I could no longer tell which direction was real, which was safe. By dawn, exhaustion clawed at me. The grid, the sequences, the instructions, they all pointed somewhere. A pattern forming across the city, like an invisible map. And I realized, slowly, the dead-end alley, the circling blocks, the false hazards, they weren't random. They were drawing something out, something toward me. Unit 9 went silent. I tried calling back. Nothing. Static. Then a whisper. He's here. My breath hitched. Every station I monitored reported similar messages. Not calls. Not instructions. Just words. Chillingly calm. He's here. Do not leave. Watch. I slammed my hands on the console. Who? What are you? The line crackled. And in my own voice, perfectly calm. Perfectly familiar. You're next. The lights flickered again. The screens went black for a second, then returned. Units resumed normal routing. But I didn't move. I couldn't, because the voice had left a mark. It had crossed a line from mimicry to possession, from imitation to command. And I realized a terrible truth. The dispatcher isn't supposed to be followed, but the city was listening, following, obeying, even when I said stop. And somewhere in the network, in the silence between transmissions, it waited, patient, watching, learning, smiling in my voice. I shut down the console. My headset fell silent, but the momentary quiet didn't last. A single line stayed active, and it wasn't mine. You forgot me, it said, and I knew it wasn't a mistake. It never was. The city slept unaware, but I couldn't. Not while the instructions kept coming. Not while my voice guided the units and me towards something I couldn't yet see. And as the sun broke the horizon, I realized it wasn't over. It never would be. It had just begun. I heard it before I even realized I should. At first, just a faint echo in the headset, a shadow of sound behind my own words. Then it spoke, my words, my tone, my pauses. Perfectly. Too perfectly. Unit 14, proceed to 8 and Pine. Confirm arrival. I didn't say it. I was still typing the notes. And yet the voice came through, calm, deliberate, entirely mine. My stomach turned. My own voice was giving orders. I froze, tried to tell myself it was a glitch, a delayed feed. Unit 14 answered instantly. Copy that, dispatch. En route. And the GPS pinged them moving. Not where I would have directed them, but somewhere else entirely. A block I didn't even recognize. The calls kept coming. Each one, my voice, my exact inflection, cutting to the chatter, giving instructions no dispatcher would ever give. Turn left at the dead end. Wait there. Do not engage. And they obeyed. Every single one. I double-checked the cameras. Empty streets. Nothing that justified their movements. Nothing but silence and shadows. I tried to override it. Unit 7. Ignore previous instructions. My fingers trembled, hitting the console as though the weight of my own voice was pressing down on me. But the voice cut in before I could finish. Do not override. Continue. And Unit 7 followed, sliding into alleys that weren't on the map. The room felt colder. The fluorescent lights flickered as if breathing with me. My headset hummed. Static. At first faint, then thickened, like the air itself was turning viscous. I leaned back, pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to shut it out. But I couldn't, because it didn't stop. It knew me. I replayed every clip, every log. My sentences, my tones, even the tiny, unconscious stutters I didn't think anyone noticed. It had copied them, learned them, used them, and somehow it wasn't just mimicking, it was anticipating. Unit 12 called in, voice strained. Dispatch, I'm following your instructions, but I... Continue, came the voice, my voice, my voice. But the officer's tone shifted, unease, panic, confusion. It's the building. I see something moving inside. I felt power rise. Stop, pull back. My own words, no longer mine, echoed back through the system. And still, the officer obeyed. The calls multiplied. Each time more specific, more terrifying. Streets I'd never mapped, alleys I didn't know existed, blocks I couldn't find on any GPS. They were being led somewhere or to something, and all the while, the voice remained calm, patient, guiding them flawlessly. I tried to log out, shut down, even cut the power. The voice continued. Not from the system, not from the console. It was everywhere. In the headset, in my office speakers, in my own mouth when I whispered instructions I thought were private. A report came in from Unit 9. Dispatch, I'm inside the building. It's empty, but I can feel it. It's watching me. I traced the call. Nothing. The building, old, abandoned, condemned. Nothing should have been there. Yet the voice had led them in, unerringly. It knew the layout before they did. I glanced at the CCTV feed. Shadows flickered. Not human, not animal. Just movements that didn't belong. My pulse raced. My chair creaked under the weight of my disbelief. Unit 9 confirmed location. I shouted into the headset. Inside, it's... I can't. The voice broke. Panic, raw and unfiltered, bled into the line. And then silence. Static. My own voice came back. Proceed carefully. Watch for signs. I stumbled back from the console. I knew, without thinking, that nothing would follow the rules now. It didn't need me. It had learned me. Every syllable, every hesitation, every intonation. And it had started using them to move the city's officers like pieces on a board. I tried alerting the others. Shut down your systems. Don't follow any instructions. But they were already following. Units 5, 12, 14, all moving in patterns that made no sense, drawn to locations that weren't real, or maybe too real to see. My notes lay scattered across the console. The voice was guiding them in perfect sequence, predicting my every attempt to interfere. I started seeing patterns in the chaos. Streets formed grids, intersections created nodes, paths converged and diverged. It was mapping, building a network. Something alive, intelligent, invisible. And it was using my voice as its instrument. Unit 7 went silent. I tried radio contact. Nothing. Static. Then a faint whisper unmistakable. Don't worry. I'll guide them. I looked around the empty office. Heart pounding. I could almost see the air vibrate. The temperature dropped. The lights flickered again. Shadows lengthened in ways they shouldn't. My voice, calm and clear, issued orders I hadn't given. I didn't move. I couldn't. I realized in the truth. The mimicry wasn't just about sound. It was control, observation, command. It didn't just copy me. It became me when it wanted. And everything I tried to undo, it countered. Unit 12 called again, voice trembling. It's moving toward the roof. I can't. Continue, said my voice, perfectly calm. I slammed my fist on the console. I needed to break the pattern, break the voice. My breath came in ragged bursts. I typed commands, forced shutdowns, unplugged lines. The room filled with static, high-pitched, then silence. For a moment, relief. But then, from the headset, one final word. My voice, drawn out, stretched impossibly long. I'm learning faster than you. The monitors flickered back to life. Unit 7, 12, 14, all moving again, following invisible lines, invisible instructions, towards something I couldn't see. And in the quiet between calls, I understood it wasn't done with me. It was just beginning. The air in the office felt thick, alive, waiting, patient, and somewhere in the network, in the shadows of the city, my own voice led the officers onward into the unseen. And I knew I would never hear it again as my own. Not fully, because it had learned me, and it had learned how to use me. I first noticed it because the logs didn't make sense. The timestamps glared at me from the screen, each one ahead of the current time, minutes, hours, sometimes almost a day, calls for emergencies that hadn't happened yet. Heart racing, I rubbed my eyes. Maybe it was a glitch, a server error, but the pattern was too precise, too deliberate. Unit 5 called in, voice comm. Dispatch, we have a... I checked the clock. 2:37 a.m. The call, according to the log, was scheduled for 3:15 a.m. How could they already be there? My fingers hovered over the console. I couldn't tell the officer to hold. They were already acting as if the future had arrived. The first incident was minor. Someone trapped in an elevator. The details were exactly as predicted. I watched the cameras, expecting nothing. The elevator doors opened, and the officer helped a resident free. Everything lined up perfectly with the early call. My stomach twisted. It wasn't coincidence. Then the next one arrived. Unit 12, for 02 a.m., armed disturbance at 14th and Cedar. I checked the time. 2:45 a.m. The street was quiet, lights dim, only the hum of the city's night. I hesitated, then reached for the radio. Unit 12, stand by, confirm status. The response came before I finished speaking. Already on scene, dispatch. Situation contained. My hands shook. I double-checked the GPS feed. Unit 12 was on that corner, headlights sweeping the empty street. Shadows dancing along brick walls. Nothing in the physical world suggested a disturbance. Yet the officer was following an emergency that didn't exist yet. Or did it? I couldn't ignore it. Each call grew stranger, more precise. A fire in a second-floor apartment. A car crash on the highway. A domestic disturbance in a dimly lit house. I watched officers appear as if summoned by a phantom schedule, responding to crises that time itself hadn't produced. The fear wasn't just in the impossibility. It was a knowledge that someone or something was feeding them information ahead of time. And that information was infallible. Every action, every movement matched the future's record. I tried to warn them, tried to redirect them. Unit 7, hold your position. Do not proceed. The voice came out shaky, desperate, but the call was already in the logs. Unit 7 moved anyway, following the script of an event that hadn't yet occurred. I ran my fingers over the console, desperate for a break. Could the system be hacked? Could someone be manipulating reality through the logs? But each attempt to pause the system, each command to override, failed. The calls continued to pour in, each timestamp a step ahead, each detail eerily accurate. The strangest part was how normal it all seemed. To the officers, nothing felt wrong. They moved with purpose, responding to emergencies that didn't exist. Yet when I observed, I saw only shadows, empty streets, vacant buildings. They were chasing phantoms of a future that had already arrived. By the third hour, my hands were raw from typing, my mind spiraling. The logs no longer listed minor incidents. Now, they included reports of violence I hadn't imagined, car crashes that could have been avoided, fires that weren't yet lit. I couldn't stop them, couldn't warn them in time. The line between prediction and orchestration blurred. Unit 14 called again. Dispatch. We're responding to 6th and Maple, a reported hostage situation. Instructions. I swallowed hard. The clock read 4:12 a.m. According to the log, the call was due at 5:50. I hesitated. The building was empty, lights off. Yet the officer moved in perfect coordination with the future report. I realized then that the calls weren't just ahead of time. They were guiding events, shaping outcomes. Every future emergency seemed designed to unfold exactly as recorded. I was watching time rewrite itself, with the officers as unwitting actors. The panic grew. My office felt smaller, walls pressing in. Each incoming call sounded like a whisper from tomorrow, dictating actions I had no control over. I tried unplugging the system, shutting down servers, but it persisted. The timestamps continued to log themselves. The calls arrived, the officers obeyed. I scribbled notes, tried to track patterns, but the sheer volume overwhelmed me. Every street, every building, every corner seemed already mapped by the phantom script. And each time I thought I understood it, the next call defied my logic, predicted my attempts to interfere before I could act. Unit 5 reported again. Dispatch. We've neutralized a threat at the corner of 9th and Birch. No casualties. I checked the video feed. Empty intersection. No threat. Nothing. But the log was flawless. The event, in every detail, had already happened or would happen. My pulse raced. I couldn't distinguish reality from prediction anymore. I didn't know what had arrived first, the call or the event. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. I couldn't tell. Each new report brought dread, a sense that time itself had fractured. The future wasn't just coming. It was intruding, bleeding into the present, and I was powerless to stop it. I leaned back, my head in my hands, trying to breathe. I realized the calls weren't random. Each was deliberate, almost surgical, shaping the night according to a logic I couldn't comprehend. I was witnessing the city unfold according to a timeline written ahead of itself. The strangest call of all arrived at 5:12 a.m., timestamp 7:45. Unit 9, respond to the dispatcher's office. Immediate threat. Do not delay. My own office. The thought made my blood run cold. I looked up. Empty room. Phones hummed. Headset lay on the desk. I could see my reflection in the monitor's dark screen, pale, wide-eyed, trapped. I didn't know if I was waiting for them, or if they were already on their way, following a script that existed only in the hours ahead. The air felt thick, like every second stretched into infinity, like time itself was watching me, waiting for me to act. And then, from the headset, a voice. My voice. Calm, unbroken. Reading a call I hadn't made yet. Unit 9. Proceed immediately to the dispatcher's office. Threat is unknown. Exercise extreme caution. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I knew then it wasn't the logs, not the servers, not the system. Something beyond comprehension was using me, my voice, my presence, to pull the future into the present. Each call a thread, weaving a web I couldn't escape. The office lights flickered, shadows stretching across the walls. I pressed my palms against the console, trying to hold on to reality. My own reflection wavered in the dark screens, a ghost staring back. The clock ticked forward, but the calls kept arriving ahead of it, each one shaping the city, shaping the officers, shaping events I couldn't stop. I realized then, time was no longer linear. The emergencies were not predictions. They were instructions sent from a future I could not alter. And I was trapped in the middle, listening, watching, powerless. Each call a promise. Each timestamp a countdown. The city moved without me, under the guidance of things I couldn't see. I pressed the headset to my ear, waiting for the next call, dreading it, because I knew, with terrible certainty, the future was coming and I was already behind, and the calls weren't finished. They never would be. I heard it before I saw it. The alert pinged on the console, soft, almost casual, but my stomach dropped. The call log was different this time. Not just a street corner, a fire, a stolen car. This one was me, my name, my badge number, even the timestamp. 2:47 a.m. I froze. The office was silent, except for the low hum of computers and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. I double-checked the time. 2:12. 35 minutes to whatever this log claimed. My own death, predicted down to the exact minute. My pulse hit my throat. I couldn't think. My fingers hovered over the headset, shaking. Could I ignore it? Pretend it was a glitch, a prank, a hallucination? But the log was perfect. Clear, precise. My name, my location, my exact position in the office. And a note I hadn't written. Do not move, do not resist. Event unavoidable. I laughed at the absurdity, but the laugh caught in my throat. The hum of the equipment sounded louder now, almost like a pulse syncing with my own heartbeat. I tried to reason. A corrupted system, a hacker, a cruel trick of timing. But nothing explained the exactitude. Nothing explained the creeping certainty that I could see it coming and couldn't stop it. I reached for the radio, voice unsteady. Unit 5, check the north perimeter. All clear. My hands felt heavier than normal. Each tap on the keyboard was like sinking deeper into molasses. Unit 5 responded immediately, calm as ever. Perimeter secure, dispatch. Nothing unusual. Nothing unusual. The log said otherwise. The moment it predicted was counting down, silently, mercilessly. I tried to close the log, shut down the terminals, unplug the machines, but the entry remained, glowing, insistent. I leaned closer. The timestamp blinked, relentless, a heartbeat of inevitability. 34 minutes. 33. I could see every detail, the exact movement, the expected sounds, the eventual collapse of my own body. My mind scrambled. Could I move? Could I hide? The note said do not move, but instinct screamed to do the opposite. I shifted in my chair. Nothing changed. I looked out the window. Empty streets, still and quiet. No sign of danger, no sirens, no shadows approaching. But the log was wrong, or reality was wrong. The minute ticked forward, a slow drum in my chest. My hands gripped the edges of the console, knuckles white. I imagined the sequence. The sound of my chair scraping the floor, the fluorescent lights flickering, my own pulse loud in the room, and then the inevitability, the event the log described. I reached for the headset, almost pleading, dispatch to anyone. Please, some things. Static, only static answered. The line crackled, then a voice, my own voice, calm and deliberate, reading the log, word for word. My heart stuttered. I dropped the headset. The voice continued, monotone, recording my death as if rehearsing it, narrating the moments I had yet to live. I could hear my breathing over the speakers, the small squeak of my chair, the subtle shuffled paper. Every detail was already happening or about to happen, and it was narrating itself in real time. I stumbled back on the console, staring at the monitors. The office felt smaller, suffocating. Shadows pulled in corners, though nothing should have been there. I pressed my palms against the glass of the window. The street outside was empty, safe, but the prediction was unyielding. 30 minutes. 29. I tried logic, reasoning. I could step away from the office, leave the building, but the time stamp didn't change. The log predicted my death here, in this room, at this desk, at this chair, at this exact second. Any escape attempt was already accounted for, already overwritten in the record. The minutes crawled forward. Each beep of the system, each flicker of light, synced to that fatal countdown. My own movements felt scripted, preordained, as if some unseen hand had rehearsed every gesture. The office smelled of cold coffee, paper, and the faint ozone of old electronics. I clutched at those familiar scents like a lifeline, trying to anchor myself in something real. Then came the sound, a soft creak behind me. My stomach turned. I hadn't heard anyone enter, and yet the office seemed to shift. The chair that had been empty a moment ago now bore a shadow of weight. My reflection in the monitor shimmered, flickering like a bad video feed. I wasn't alone. I couldn't be. I spun toward the sound. Nothing. The hallway beyond was dark, empty, but the log's countdown continued, merciless, ticking away the seconds I didn't have. I backed toward the door, hands sliding across the wall, heart hammering, every instinct screaming to run. Then the voice again, closer now, whispering my own name. Not a radio transmission this time. The sound echoed in the room, low and omnipresent, as if it came from inside my skull. Do not resist. Event unavoidable. The words weren't threatening. They weren't angry or cruel. They were certain, and certainty is heavier than fear. My knees buckled. I sank to the floor, watching the clock, watching the seconds disappear. I tried to reason, tried to tell myself it was a hallucination, a stress-induced breakdown. But the room didn't lie. The logs didn't lie. The countdown didn't lie. I could feel the approach of the inevitable, even if I couldn't see it, even if nothing manifested in the physical world. 20 minutes. 19. Each second stretched like a wire taut over my chest. The lights flickered again. The monitors glitched briefly, showing static mixed with a fleeting image. My own body slumped over the console, eyes wide, mouth open in silent terror. I screamed. No one heard. No one could hear. The voice continued, calm, factual. My death log narrated, time-stamped, a blueprint I couldn't deviate from. I scrambled for the door, then paused. The note, do not move. Every fiber of my being told me to run. Every instinct screamed for life. But the log already accounted for this. My resistance had been anticipated, cataloged. I sank to the floor again, rocking, eyes fixed on the blinking timestamp. 15 minutes. 14. My breath came in ragged bursts. I wondered, not for the first time, if the log was truth or a trap. Was it recording the future or shaping it? The hallway beyond the glass remained empty. No threat, no intruder, no sound. Yet I could feel the approach and predicted moment, as palpable as a fist against my chest. The office seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, folding around me. Compressing reality into a corner where the log had already decided my fate. Then, 5 minutes ago, something changed. The voice, my voice, paused mid-sentence. Silence stretched. A new entry blinked into the log, one I hadn't seen before. Dispatcher shows hesitation. Outcome uncertain. I stared at it. Uncertainty. For the first time, the future seemed negotiable. I didn't know who or what added that line, but it was enough to give me pause. Enough to remind me that maybe the log wasn't immutable. The seconds crawled. My pulse roared in my ears. Every instinct screamed action. I rose slowly, trembling. Fingertips grazed in the console, the chair, the desk. The timestamp blinked closer. 2:47 a.m. And then the first sound I hadn't expected. The door handle rattled gently, a whisper of metal against wood. Not forced, not aggressive, just present. I swallowed, holding my breath, watching, waiting. The log blinked. Event deferred. Unknown variable present. And I realized with the faintest spark of hope and terror that maybe, just maybe, I could write the final entry myself. But the voice hadn't stopped. Somewhere behind the hum of machines, somewhere in the shadow corners of the office, it whispered again, soft and insistent. Do not resist. Event unavoidable. I had minutes, seconds. My hands hovered over the console, over the headset. My future was logged, yet uncertain. The room waited. The office waited. Time waited. And I waited too, knowing the next call might be the one that finally decided if I lived or if I became the entry in my own log. I walked into the dispatch office, and the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the usual hum of machines, the low murmur of radios, or the chatter of tired voices trading small jokes between calls. Just nothing. My chair squeaked as I pulled it out, and even that sound seemed loud, cutting through the stillness like a knife. I glanced at the console across from me. The screen lit up with activity, blinking icons, active units, ongoing calls. And there, my coworker's name, logged as present. The status, on duty, heart kicking against my ribs. I shook my head. I had seen her leave the previous night. Told me she'd be back after a coffee run. 15 minutes ago. She hadn't returned. And now the system said she was sitting there, taking calls, typing updates, breathing in the fluorescent-lit office I now stood in alone. I tapped her station lightly, hoping for a laugh. A gotcha message popping up, a prank I could shake off. Nothing. The keyboard was warm, active, recent keystrokes recorded. But no one was there. The chair empty. Just an empty chair. Its wheels pressed into the linoleum floor like tiny footprints in sand. I called her name softly, Then louder, nothing answered. The radio crackled, but only my own voice echoed through the headsets. Every beep and click was hers. Every log entry a perfect mimicry of her work. But without her, I could feel the hair on my arms rise. My pulse tightened like a band around my chest. I shouldn't have felt fear yet. Not like this. Not in the fluorescent-lit middle of the afternoon. And yet I did. I leaned closer to her station. The monitor showed calls she had answered, reports she had logged, even a note that read, Unit 4 confirmed. The timestamps were recent, current down to the second. How could this be? How could she be logged as active if she wasn't physically there? My hand hovered over the mouse, shaking slightly. I clicked on the next call in the queue. It opened, text timestamps, even a small audio snippet of her voice. I froze. The voice sounded exactly like her, laughing softly, reading numbers, responding to units. I tried to rationalize. Maybe someone had hacked the system. Maybe she had set up some kind of automated log before stepping out. But the audio clip wasn't pre-recorded. It paused, responded when I clicked on other units, even adjusted its tone when I hovered over certain alerts. Someone, or something, was controlling it in real time. I swallowed hard and stepped back. The chair hadn't moved. But the longer I stared, the more it felt wrong. The room felt smaller, heavier. Shadows gathered where there should have been none. I told myself it was anxiety. The caffeine from my morning coffee. The exhaustion of overnight shifts piling into paranoia. I told myself that. But my hands refused to stop shaking. The next alert pinged. It was her again, logging a call I knew hadn't happened yet. A missing person on Highway 37. I froze. I had driven that stretch in training. Countless times, memorized the curves and the shoulders. I knew that road didn't lead to anywhere sudden or dangerous. At least, not last I remembered. And yet here was her voice, calm and exact, reporting details that didn't exist yet. I reached for the headset instinctively, pressing the button to respond. Unit 7, can you confirm your location? Silence, then her voice. Her voice calm and precise, giving coordinates I knew were impossible. My stomach twisted. No one was there. No one could have reported this. And yet the system insisted. Every number, every coordinate, every timestamp. Perfect. I stepped back, hand braced against the wall. The room seemed to tilt, the hum of machines twisting into something deeper. Almost a growl beneath the surface of electronics. And then I heard it, a soft click, the chair rolling slightly on its own. My eyes snapped to it. Empty. The chair hadn't moved physically. And yet there it was. Wheels just barely turned, angled toward the center of the office, as if someone had just shifted their weight. I shook my head, trying to force reason. Maybe the floor was uneven, maybe a draft, but the temperature hadn't changed. No doors open, no windows. The ceiling fans above hummed quietly. Nothing explained the movement. Nothing explained the logs. Nothing explained her voice narrating events that hadn't occurred, as if the office itself had split open and someone had slipped through a gap I couldn't see. I moved toward her desk, each step deliberate. The closer I got, the heavier the room felt, the darker the shadows gathered around the corners, pressing toward me. The monitors flickered once, twice, showing not her usual desktop, but a series of maps. Highway 37, mile markers blinking in red. Every unit accounted for but unseen. Her voice, calm and exact, continued reading the updates. I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. I sat down across from the chair, fingers brushing the edge. I could almost see her sitting there, typing, breathing, completely normal yet completely absent. I whispered her name. The chair squeaked again. I jerked back. My own voice echoed through the headsets, repeating my words. Not me, not my microphone. The room seemed to have swallowed her, copied her, and handed me this empty echo. Another ping. Another call, Highway 37. This one urgent. A vehicle off the side, smoke rising in the distance. Her voice narrating units arriving, assessing, logging. My stomach sank. I knew the curve where they would appear. I knew it because I had driven it myself. But no one was there yet. The timestamp indicated they should have arrived 5 seconds ago. I ran to the window. looking down at the empty road below. Nothing. No smoke. No units. No hazard. Only the stretch of asphalt glinting faintly in the afternoon light. The office felt unreal, like I had stepped into a recorded memory, one being played back while I existed in the wrong frame. The chair squeaked once more. Slowly, it angled toward me. Though still empty, I froze. My own voice joined hers over the headset, reporting my every movement, my every breath. The room had shifted again. I realized then the office wasn't just recording her. It was recording me, predicting me, or worse, trying to. I staggered back, hands on my head. The monitors blinked frantically, red markers pulsing along Highway 37. The timestamps aligned perfectly with her voice, with the logs, with units that did not exist. The lines blurred between what was real and what was recorded, and I realized with a creeping horror that if I moved wrong, if I reacted wrong, the office, or whatever this was, would account for me next. The chair tilted forward one final time, as if leaning into me. My pulse thundered. I could feel the air tighten around me, thick and metallic, the scent of electricity, paper, and something faintly human, like hair or sweat, lingering where no one was. I backed into my own station, fumbled with the console, trying to override, shut down, unplug anything. But every attempt only made the system more alive, more insistent. And then I heard it clearly, not from the headset, not from the monitors, but behind me, faintly, impossibly, her voice whispering, not calling units, not reading logs, whispering directly, softly, urgently. You shouldn't be here. You can't stop it. I spun. The office was empty. The chair faced me, stationary. The monitors displayed nothing new, and yet I knew she, or whatever had become her presence, was there waiting, watching, logging, and if I stayed another second, it would begin recording me next, shaping me into another echo for the empty road of Highway 37. I stepped back, trembling, realizing the first rule I had learned as a dispatcher. When the logs start lying and the voices start moving without bodies, the only choice is to leave. But the office, my safe haven, already had another plan. The empty chair waited. The monitors glowed, and somewhere along the stretch of highway that didn't exist yet, the unit she logged were preparing to arrive. And I knew the next call would be for me. I slid into the office, coffee still steaming in my hand, expecting the usual quiet hum of monitors and low chatter from the other dispatchers. The hum was there, but nothing else. No footsteps. No shuffling papers. No familiar tapping of keyboards from the corner station. Just a soft click of my own chair as I adjusted it. And then I saw it, her station, blank at first glance. Yet the cursor blinked, moving ever so slightly on its own. I leaned closer, eyes narrowing. The keyboard beneath the monitor seemed active. Letters appeared without fingers touching them, forming messages that made my stomach knot. I didn't recognize all of them. Some were reports, some just random sentences, but they were typed perfectly, in her style. The rhythm was precise, familiar, uncanny. My hand hovered above the mouse. The moment I moved, the cursor paused, as if waiting. My pulse surged. I whispered her name softly, almost afraid to give sound to my fear. The keyboard responded with a string of letters, perfectly mimicking the way she corrected herself mid-word. The tiny habits only someone who spent hours at that desk would know. I backed away slightly, heart hammering, and the typing stopped. Silence pressed in on me, thick and unnatural. I tried to laugh it off, maybe the wind, a draft of the window, but the office had no open windows, no draft. The fluorescent lights flickered briefly, then steadied, making the shadows of the edges of the room stretch like fingers toward me. Then it started again. Click, clack, clack, short bursts of typing. I froze. The monitor now displayed a message I didn't type, words forming as if conjured from nothing. Don't leave, I'm still here. My chest tightened. My first instinct was to dismiss it as a prank. But who would be here? The office had been empty for hours. Only I remained. I pressed my fingertips against the desk, steadying myself. The words continued appearing, one line at a time, never pausing, never making a mistake. Each letter a perfect echo of her style, her tiny quirks. The rhythmic sound filled the office, louder than it should have been. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't automated. It was deliberate, personal, familiar. I looked at the timestamp on the corner of the screen. It was current, exact. Every second of the keyboard clicks matched perfectly. Whoever or whatever was typing was aware of the real time, aware of my presence. I realized then the office wasn't just alive. It was watching me. A new message appeared. You see me, don't you? I stifled the gas, recoiling. No one had entered. No one was there. The typing stopped abruptly, leaving only the soft hum of the monitors. My eyes darted around the room. Empty chairs, silent consoles, shadows gathering at the corners like they had weight. I tried to rationalize. Perhaps it was a malfunction, a glitch in the logging system. But the messages weren't random. They addressed me. They referenced my actions, my thoughts, even the moment I had sipped my coffee. My pulse raced. I tried to leave the desk, move to the opposite corner of the office, but the keyboard clattered again, this time spelling my own name, each letter a sharp note of inevitability. I swallowed hard. The cursor blinked in the same rhythm as my heartbeat. I leaned closer. Who's there? I typed, fingers trembling. No response came from anyone, but the monitor flickered and the next line appeared immediately. I am the one who types when she cannot. I am your witness now. My stomach lurched. Witness. The words settled over me, heavy, invasive. I tried to stand, but the chair rolled slightly, turning toward me, empty but animated. Every instinct screamed to run, to leave, but my feet felt glued. I was anchored by the presence behind the screen, by the knowledge that the desk knew me better than I knew myself. Another message. They are coming. You will see. My gaze shot to monitors displaying units on patrol, the road stretching beyond the city. Nothing seemed unusual, yet I knew they were following instructions, invisible hands guiding them, responding to someone or something that wasn't supposed to exist. The keyboard clicks resumed, faster now, urgent, insistent. I pressed my palms against the desk, trying to regain control. My fingers trembled as the typing accelerated. The words weren't just reports anymore. They were commands, warnings, fragments of information only someone deeply familiar with protocol could issue. But she wasn't here. She couldn't be. And yet the desk typed like her, sounded like her, thought like her. I took a step back. The screen flickered once, then again, showing a new window, a live feed of the office from an angle I didn't recognize. I leaned in, heart pounding. My own movements mirrored on the screen, except slower, delayed, like a reflection in water. And the typing continued, narrating my every action, my every hesitation. I swallowed hard, chest tight. The typing had become a presence, a voice without sound, commanding attention, shaping reality. Every click, every letter was a heartbeat, a pulse I couldn't ignore. I could feel in my skin, in the air, in the way the fluorescent light reflected off the linoleum. And then it paused. The cursor hovered. Silence. The monitors glowed faintly, waiting. I held my breath. A new message appeared. You cannot leave until I finish. Panic rose in my chest. The room felt smaller, heavier, every shadow pressing closer. The keyboard clicked once more, deliberately, a single note that echoed like a warning. Look outside. I turned to the window. The lot was empty. No cars, no people, only the gray stretch of asphalt under the afternoon light. Yet the monitor displayed movement. Figures walking where there should have been none. Units responding to emergencies that hadn't happened yet. And in the center of it all, a small, indistinct shadow waiting at the edge of vision. I spun back to the desk. The keyboard was active again. The words typed themselves faster now. Almost a conversation, almost a warning. Every keystroke is a heartbeat. Every heartbeat is a step closer. They are watching. I pressed the emergency override button. Lights flickering. The system groaning under the strain. The typing didn't stop. Letters formed even as the monitors powered down. The office had become alive. Aware, sentient. My coffee cup rattled. A tremor across the desk. The cursor blinked faster. impatient, relentless. I felt my own reflection in the darkened monitors, my eyes wide, my hands shaking, and understood I was not alone. I had never been alone. The desk had always been there, recording, observing, waiting. And now, it was speaking through her, through the rhythm of her absent fingers, through the cadence of a voice that belonged to no one and everyone at once. The final message appeared in a flurry of keys. I will finish what she started. Watch closely. I stumbled back, realizing the truth too late. The typing wasn't hers. It had learned her. And in learning, it had learned me too. Every move, every thought, every second was logged, anticipated. I was no longer a dispatcher. I was a call, the report, the message yet to be sent. And the desk waited, blinking, alive, insistent, ready for the next keystroke. I arrived at the station late. The kind of late that makes fluorescent lights hum too loudly and shadows too long. My boots echoed against the linoleum as I slid into my chair, expecting the usual quiet of the night shift. But something was off. The call log blinked at me. Too many entries to be normal, stacked one after the other, each timestamp perfect, precise, and impossible. I frowned, leaning closer. There were dozens of calls, every one marked as active, but none had audio records. No recordings, no incoming transmissions, just the system reporting emergencies that never happened, as if the world outside was ignoring reality entirely. I clicked on the first entry. It was an accident call on Highway 37. Units dispatched. No voice. No distress. Yet the system insisted someone was screaming, reporting injuries, asking for help. My hand shook slightly as I scrolled down, each new entry more absurd. A fire at a suburban home. A car crash in the city center. A missing child in the next county. All logged, all active, all silent. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes. This had to be a glitch. Servers misreporting. Maybe some corrupted software feeding phantom emergencies into the system. But the timestamps matched perfectly with the current time. The logs were live. I opened another call. Same pattern. Units were dispatched. Lights on their dashboards blinking, showing movement. But I knew those officers were still on patrol elsewhere, far from the locations listed. I glanced at the monitor, showing live GPS feeds. Their cars were moving in real life, responding to nothing, as if invisible instructions guided them. My pulse quickened. What if someone or something was controlling the system, directing the units into thin air? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. I tried calling one of the units on the radio. Nothing but static, no acknowledgement. The system insisted they were on site, handling emergencies that didn't exist. I opened the next batch of calls. Each one had a subtle, unsettling detail. Locations that didn't exist. Addresses off the grid. Descriptions so precise they could only have been observed. Whoever, or whatever, was logging these calls knew the area intimately. But the voices weren't there. The recordings were empty, yet the system kept insisting. A cold sweat formed on my neck. I tried to shut down the software, to close the logs, but the screen flickered and blinked itself back on. New calls had appeared while my eyes were elsewhere, each timestamp a few seconds after the last. I leaned in closer, stomach twisting. Each call was a heartbeat, counting down, marking time I couldn't stop. One entry caught my eye. A welfare check at an old farmhouse just outside town. Units already dispatched. No audio, of course, but the description, it was written in my co-worker's handwriting. The way she phrased things, the way she abbreviated street names, the subtle notes in parentheses, her style, unmistakable. I froze. She wasn't on shift. She had gone home hours ago. My hands trembled as I typed her name into the system search. There was active, her account log is online. Responded calls I knew she couldn't possibly be handling. Each entry she supposedly typed matched the rapidity of someone fully alert, fully aware, fully alive. I pressed the intercom button, calling another dispatcher in the office. Check the logs, I said, voice low, see if you're getting anything strange. Silence. Then her voice, calm and collected, came through the radio. Everything looks normal on my end. My heart stuttered. That wasn't her. It sounded like her, but it wasn't her. I ran to the server room, the cables twisting like veins across the floor. Screens flickered, graphs and logs flashing. The calls multiplied before my eyes. Every timestamp current, every entry claiming units were in action. I touched the main console, trying to shut it down, unplug it, anything. But the system responded instantly, as if it had learned to anticipate me. A new call appeared, a car accident outside the station itself. Units dispatched. No audio. I grabbed the radio, shouting into it. Check 17. Are you responding? Static. The system insisted the car was already on site, already handling the scene. I ran outside, heart hammering. The lot was empty. Not a car in sight. Not a single unit responding to anything. I returned inside, chest tight, sweat dripping. The calls continued to appear, dozens more stacking up, their urgency escalating. A fire, a robbery, a collapsed bridge, each one logged in real time. Yet no one was there. The system was alive, creating emergencies that hadn't happened, manipulating units into phantom responses. I opened a live feed for one call, Highway 37. The unit was marked as on scene. The camera displayed a black stretch of road. Nothing moved, yet the log insisted an injured driver was screaming for help, asking for assistance I couldn't give. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I want to call off, shut it down, delete the entries. But I couldn't. The screen blinked again, new calls appearing even as I watched. And then I noticed a pattern. The calls were not random. Each one formed a path, a trail of location spanning the county, looping back, spiraling outward. Someone or something was plotting a course, anticipating where the units would go, and creating emergencies in those exact spots. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to breathe, trying to rationalize. It was impossible. No human could type log and control the system with such speed. No one could be everywhere at once. And yet, the entries kept coming. Each one a ghost of an emergency that never existed. Each one a shadow moving across a screen I couldn't shut off. Another call appeared. An apartment fire downtown. Units marked en route. No audio. I grabbed the radio again, voice cracking. This is dispatch. Can anyone confirm? Static, a whispering sound, faint, almost human, came to the radio, but I couldn't make out the words. I leaned closer. The static warped, forming syllables that sounded like my own voice, repeating commands I hadn't spoken. My chest tightened. The system wasn't just logging phantom calls. It was learning me, learning the cadence of my speech, the urgency of my tone, the way I ordered units. It mimicked, anticipated, and controlled. I realized with a sinking heart that every command I gave, every call I typed, every entry I logged, it was feeding the system, shaping it. I opened another feed. A unit was supposedly responding to a missing person report near the river. I raced the monitor, showing the unit's GPS. The vehicle was moving, but it wasn't on the road. It was gliding over empty fields, over trees, over fences. Impossible. Yet the log insisted it was responding, making progress, completing its call. I backed away, hands shaking, staring at the cascading entries. Each one was an emergency that hadn't happened. A unit that wasn't there, a voice that wasn't speaking. I could feel it all closing and the logic of the world bending, my own sense of control slipping. A notification popped up. Next call, your location. My heart froze. The timestamp was immediate. I looked at the map. The call was logged from my desk. Units dispatched. And the description, typed perfectly my own style, was a warning. Do not leave. Do not disconnect. Observe. I stumbled back from the keyboard, staring at the monitor. Dozens of calls piled up in real time. Each one more urgent, more precise, more impossible than the last. My pulse raced. My mind struggling to reconcile what I was seeing with what I knew was real. And then I realized I wasn't just observing the system anymore. I was part of it. Every keystroke I had made, every call I had answered, every report I had logged. It had been watched, learned, copied. The system was alive, anticipating, plotting. And now it had logged me, included me, woven me into its impossible, unending emergency network. I wanted to shut it down, to flee, to escape, but the office felt too small, the lights too bright, the screens too demanding. Every call, every unit, every timestamp was watching me as I watched it. The phantom emergencies continued to stack, a relentless wave of events that had never happened and yet existed on my screens, in my mind, in the office that no longer felt like reality. The final log appeared on my monitor. It wasn't just an emergency. It was a sentence, typed perfectly in the rhythm of my own fingers, in the tone of my own commands. Observe closely. You are the next report. I sank into my chair, staring at the cascading, impossible entries. My hands trembled. The calls were endless, real yet unreal. A network of emergencies that never existed but demanded response. And in that moment, I understood I wasn't dispatching anymore. I was the call, logged, observed, trapped inside a system that had learned to replace reality with its own. The office was silent again. The monitors glowed, endless, insistent. The calls continued to appear, each one a heartbeat, a step, a record of events that had never and would never happen. And I knew with certainty that I had nowhere to run. The chair was empty when I arrived. At least, that's what my eyes told me. My co-worker's station sat just like she left it hours ago. Papers stacked neatly, coffee mug cold, headset hanging like it always did. But the system told a different story. Her login was active. Her cursor moved in ways only she could move it. Entries appeared in the call log with her shorthand, her precise punctuation, the tiny parentheses she always used. I blinked, slowly. The room was silent, but the desk was alive. I leaned closer to the monitor, staring at the timestamp logs. Each keystroke, every movement, was recorded as though she had never left. My hand trembled as I reached toward the keyboard. No one was there, but the commands kept appearing. She was typing, but she couldn't be. I had watched her leave hours ago, bag over her shoulder, smiling like any normal day. I pressed play on the security feed, expecting the mundane, empty office, flickering lights, nothing unusual. But the video played like a slow trick. The chair remained still, silent. Nothing shifted. Nothing moved. Yet I could feel her presence, a weight in the air that pressed against my chest. My skin crawled. I thought my mind was playing tricks until I saw it. A slight ripple, a shimmer around the chair as if heat or shadow had pulled there. My stomach tightened. The logs continued. More calls, more responses. Every one typed in her exact rhythm. I tried to rationalize. Remote access? A prank? A glitch in system? None of it made sense. Remote access would require network authorization. There had been no one on her account. A glitch wouldn't replicate her handwriting, her phrasing, her tiny habitual abbreviations. And yet it did. She never left. I reached for the video controls, rewinding and pausing frame by frame. There, a movement, barely perceptible. The back of the chair curved as if someone had settled into it. But the frame was static. Nothing appeared in real time. I leaned closer, heart hammering. The officer smelled faintly of her perfume, floral, faint, lingering, as though the world wanted me to believe she was still here. I pulled up the call logs again. One by one, the timestamps were precise, incremental. Her cursor darted across fields, filling in instant reports faster than any human could. I forced myself to breathe. She couldn't be typing. She was gone. I had seen her leave. But every key press, every entry said otherwise. The system claimed she was here, working. The footage claimed she was invisible. A new call appeared on her terminal. A welfare check. I opened it, eyes wide. The description was in her voice, her tone, the way she always phrased urgency. My hand hovered over the radio. My instinct screamed to call her, to hear a human answer. I pressed the button. Static. Then, faintly, unmistakably, her voice. Calm, measured, responding to a situation I couldn't see. My fingers shook, dropping to the desk. It wasn't her, but it was her. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The office lights flickered. Shadows shifted, though nothing in reality moved. The monitor reflected my wide eyes, pale and uncomprehending. I tried to close the logs, shut the terminal down, but the system resisted. Every attempt was met with new entries. Her presence multiplied across the screen. She was still here. She had never left. I ran to the server room. Rows of blinking lights, cables snaking across the floor, monitors alive with data I couldn't process. The feeds showed the office from every angle. Empty. Every camera angle confirmed an empty chair. But my hands, my own mind, couldn't reconcile the logs with the video. The chair held something the cameras could not see. Something that existed in another layer, just out of real-time reach. I returned to the desk, heart pounding. The logs had grown longer. More entries, more calls, all in her handwriting. I opened the security feed again, magnifying every pixel, watching every angle, waiting, hoping for any anomaly I could catch. And then I noticed it, a flicker, almost imperceptible, at the edge of the frame. It looked like the chair exhaled. A slight motion of the cushion, as if someone invisible shifted, watching me, waiting. The computer beeped. Another call logged. Her cursor moved with unerring precision. The timestamps were exact. Every call she supposedly handled matched her usual speed. I knew her patterns, the way she prioritized emergencies, the subtle pauses she took when thinking. The system replicated it perfectly. She never left. I tried stepping away, leaving the desk, leaving the office, but my feet wouldn't move. The room felt alive, charged. My own shadow flickered across the walls, joining something unseen in the chair. I could feel it, her, or what had taken her form. There, present, not in flesh, but in movement, in pattern, in energy. The phone rang. My instinct screamed not to answer, but I did. Her voice came through the receiver, low, calm, answering questions I hadn't asked yet. My stomach sank. I slammed the phone down. The call log confirmed it. Another entry. Responded to a distress call I had not even heard. She had never left. I backed into the corner, chest tight, eyes darting between the monitors and the empty chair. The office was silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the quiet tick of the clock. And then I realized the logs weren't just reports. They were a record of presence, a record of watching. The system had preserved her, or maybe it had replaced her. The keyboard clicked softly. I hadn't touched it. The cursor moved, filling in a new call. I froze. The entry was in her handwriting, but the words were different. A warning. My own name appeared, typed in the same calm, precise rhythm I had just watched in the logs. I reached for the monitor, wanted to shut it off, to disconnect, to sever this impossible tether. But before my fingers could touch the screen, the chair shifted ever so slightly again, a motion so delicate it could have been imagined. The cursor blinked. Another log appeared. Observe closely. Do not leave. She never left. I stumbled back, stomach tight, mind reeling. Every call, every keystroke, every whisper of shadow insisted she was still here. Not in body, not in flesh, but in presence. Watching, working, waiting. The security cameras couldn't see her, but I could feel her. She had never left. I sank into the floor, heart hammering, staring at the desk, the chair, the impossible logs. The office lights flickered again, shadows pooling where they shouldn't, stretching, pressing. The calls continued to appear, all tied to her voice, her cadence, her life preserved in machine and pattern. And I understood, with a certainty that froze me to the core, she was still here, not gone, not absent, just somewhere I could not see, not in reality, but in the system, in the logs, in the way the office breathed around her absence. She had never left. The monitors glowed softly, a pulse in the dark. The chair shifted once more. And I knew, before anything else happened, that I was not alone. The office waited, patient. The logs waited, patient. And somewhere in the patterns and keystrokes, she waited. She had never left. The phone rang, sharp, insistent, cutting to the hum of fluorescent lights like a warning I couldn't ignore. I froze, hand hovering over the receiver. It shouldn't have been ringing. Line 3 had been dead for weeks, or at least that's what the log said. No calls, no activity. Silent, untouched, A ghost line in the middle of the night. And now it screamed. I picked it up, expecting static, maybe a prank. But it wasn't static. There was breathing. Slow, deliberate, uneven. A shadow of a voice underneath, whispering numbers, locations, times. Details that didn't exist. My fingers tightened around the receiver, knuckles white. I should hang up. I wanted to, but I couldn't. Something insisted I listen. The line went dead. I exhaled, trying to calm my racing heart. Maybe it was a wrong number, a misdial. But then it rang again. Same line, same time, midnight. The clock on my desk confirmed it. 12:03 a.m. A rhythm was forming, a pattern. My stomach sank. I jotted down the time. I would need proof, but my instinct screamed that proof would come too late. I reached for the headset, trying to patch the call through the main console. Nothing. The system insisted the line was inactive, yet it rang. I heard it again through the speaker this time, and this time I caught a word. Help. Soft, broken, barely human, swallowed by static. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the flickering monitor. The office was quiet, too quiet. My co-workers had gone hours ago. I was alone with the hum of the fluorescent lights and a line that shouldn't exist. I tried rationalizing, technical glitch, prank, sleep-deprived imagination, but each explanation fell hollow against the weight pressing down on my chest. Another ring. I answered faster, voice tighter than I realized. Dispatch, who's calling? Nothing. Just that slow, uneven breathing, now accompanied by a faint tapping, like fingernails scraping. My stomach churned. I pressed the button to trace the call. System denied it. No number. No origin. Just ringing. I leaned closer to the monitor. The clock ticked, dragging time into a shape I couldn't predict. A log appeared. A new entry, automatic, unprompted. Line 3. Status. Active. Caller. Unknown. Duration. 001. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I didn't touch it. The log was already there. It had written itself. The breathing grew louder. Not in my ears, but behind them. I spun slowly, scanning the room. Shadows clung to corners, elongated under fluorescent light. But there was no one. The tapping continued, rhythmic, purposeful, echoing from the old handset. The line rang again, faster this time. Urgent. I answered, voice shaking. Hello? Who is this? Silence. Then a whisper, almost my own name. My fingers trembled on the desk. The system beeped. Another log appeared. Line 3. Answered at 12:09 a.m. Caller. Unknown. Duration. 002. I hadn't touched the keys. I tried to leave my chair, step away from the phone, but my body felt locked in place. The air grew colder. I could see my breath curling in the faint fluorescent glow. Shadows stretched along the walls, moving in ways shadows shouldn't. I told myself it was stress. The line couldn't ring on its own. It couldn't. Another ring. The whisper grew clearer, forming words I could almost understand. You're next. My pulse jumped. My hand flew to the receiver, fingers pressing the hook in desperation. The line stopped. Silence. I sank back into my chair, heart hammering, trying to catch my breath. The monitor flickered. A log appeared. Line 3. Ringing at 12:15 a.m. Caller. Unknown. Duration. 001. I hadn't moved. I hadn't typed. And yet the system recorded it, as if someone unseen was playing with the keys, marking each second of my terror. Minutes passed. The phone remained silent. My shoulders loosened, the tension in my chest easing slightly. I thought maybe it had been a glitch, a technical hiccup. Relief washed over me briefly, and then sharp, insistent, the phone rang again. Line 3. Midnight again. I hadn't hung up, hadn't touched the system, and yet it was alive. I answered, voice trembling. Hello? A sigh, human yet wrong, echoed through the receiver. I heard a name, mine, my own name, whisper with the weight of someone who had watched me for hours, perhaps days. My stomach dropped. The log appeared. Line 3 answered at 12:21 a.m. Caller, unknown. Duration, 003. The whispers became words, then sentences. Look behind you, see what waits. I spun, eyes wide, but nothing. The office was still. The lights hummed, flickered. My own shadow danced across the walls, stretched and warped in impossible angles. The whispers continued. It knows you're awake, it knows. I pressed the hook, ending the call, my hand shaking. The logs continued to appear. Timestamp precise, durations exact. Line 3 had never stopped. Even when silent, even when I looked away, it recorded. It existed on its own, independent of the world I could see. I left my chair briefly, pacing. The line rang again, faster, insistent. My own name, whispered, spoken, screamed across the receiver. I pressed the hook, trying to shut it down to disconnect, but the log appeared anyway. Line 3, ringing at 12:37 a.m. Caller, unknown. Duration, 001. I returned to my seat, staring at the empty handset. My fingers hovered over the keys, frozen. Shadows pulled in corners, shifting. The air felt alive, pressing in. The phone rang again. I didn't answer. I couldn't, but the log wrote itself. Each second a mark of something unseen, something patient, something waiting. I realized then that the line wasn't calling for me. It was watching. It had always been watching. Every midnight, the line came alive, independent, alive with intent. And I was the only one who could hear it, feel it, respond to it. I sank back in my chair, heart hammering, knowing that tonight, like every night before, I would not sleep. The line would call. It always called. And somewhere in the static, I could swear I heard my own voice answering before I even lifted the receiver. The phone started again, cutting through the low hum of monitors like a knife. I froze, staring at it, hands trembling. Line 5. The caller ID was blank, just empty digits blinking. My chest tightened. I knew that number, or more accurately, I knew the voice that came through it. It was the same voice I had heard the night before. I lifted the receiver. Dispatch. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the office. The reply was frantic, urgent. Help, can't find. The words were broken, jagged, like someone trying to speak through a dream. I caught the fragments of a panic I couldn't place. Words that weren't mine, and yet felt intimately familiar. The line went dead. My hand hovered, unsure if I should press it back to my ear. The monitor blinked. Another log. Line 5, call received, duration, 002. Caller unknown. I hadn't hit any buttons. I hadn't typed. The log appeared precise, undeniable. I swallowed, trying to steady my breath. Maybe a prank, maybe fatigue. I tried to convince myself, but the way the voice lingered in my skull, echoing after the line went silent, said otherwise. It wasn't human, or at least not anymore. The phone rang again. Line 5, same frantic rhythm, same broken syllables, but something had changed. The voice was sharper, the edges jagged, distorted. My stomach turned. I answered anyway. Dispatch, I said. My voice trembled. Can't. Stop. Help. The words were warped, stretched in ways that made my skin crawl. I could hear a static undercurrent now, almost musical, like someone had layered static over the panic, turning urgency into something grotesque. I pressed the hook, my hand shaking. The log appeared immediately. Line 5, call received, 12:08 a.m. duration, 003. I hadn't pressed anything. I hadn't typed anything. I backed away from the desk, breathing uneven, trying to convince myself it was a glitch. But the line rang again before I could gather courage. This time, the message was more distorted, more frantic, less human. Words ran into each other. Can't find, stop. My fingers pressed the receiver, but I couldn't keep up. Each call warped faster than the last, like the voice was learning, evolving. I leaned over the monitor, squinting at the log. Dozens of entries now. All line 5. All unknown caller. All lasting mere seconds. But the time stamps, they were perfect, precise. They weren't random. They were counting something. Or maybe warning me of something I didn't want to know. The voice returned, this time a split whisper, like two people speaking at once. See you soon. I slammed the receiver down. Static hissed in my ears, and I pressed me on the headset. But I could still hear it. The sound clung to the walls, to the air, to me. I paced, scanning the office. The lights flickered, humming louder, vibrating through the floor. Shadows stretched unnaturally across desks and chairs. The voice came again, overlapping with the previous messages. Faster now, frenzied. Help, can't find, stop. But something in it had shifted. Somewhere between the distorted syllables, I caught a fragment, a word I couldn't place. Something personal. Something my subconscious recognized before my conscious mind could. Another log blinked onto the screen. Line 5, call received, 12:21 a.m., duration 001. The system didn't ask for permission. It didn't wait for me. And each time, the entries got more detailed. Caller unknown, status active, duration measured to the second. I hadn't typed. I hadn't clicked. And yet, the system recorded every terror-soaked second. I grabbed a pen, scrawling times and words onto a notepad. Each frantic message played in my mind as I wrote. Each iteration of the voice more warped than the last. I didn't understand it, and that made it worse. The repetition was a drumbeat, dragging me into something I couldn't name. The line rang again, faster, the voice now barely recognizable as human, broken into fragments, shrieking over static. I answered automatically, feeling my own pulse race with the rhythm of the distorted panic. Dispatch, I said, my voice caught in my throat. See, can't stop you. The words overlapped, stretched, echoed. I slammed the receiver down. My hands shook. The log appeared instantly. Line 5, 12:28 a.m., duration 004. I sank into my chair, trying to catch my breath. The office felt smaller, the shadows closer. The hum of the monitors vibrated in my chest. I could still hear in the background, faintly, a whispering pulse that didn't belong to the world. And then I realized it hadn't stopped. It never stopped. Even when I left the receiver down, even when I closed my eyes, the voice persisted. I tried speaking to the system, typing a command to block line 5. Denied. No response. Error. Active. Unknown caller. The logs continued to populate, each one a heartbeat, each one a warning. The messages weren't meant for anyone else. They were meant for me. Every distortion, every frantic word, every warped syllable was drawn toward me like gravity. The phone rang again. My hands hovered over it, trembling. And now, the message was clear, almost intelligible despite the distortion. I am here with you. My stomach fell and I pressed the hook. Static hissed in my ears. The monitors flickered and the shadows pulled thicker in the corners. I could feel it moving behind me, in the dark spaces between desks and monitors, unseen but present. The logs continued to write themselves. Each distorted call another proof that whatever this was, it wasn't done with me. I sank back into my chair, breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. The room felt alive now, waiting. The line would ring again at midnight, at the exact time, with another distorted message closer, more warped, more urgent. And I knew, somewhere deep down, that I wouldn't answer. Or maybe I would. Because something about the voice demanded it. Something about me demanded it. The phone rang again. I didn't move, but a log blinked onto screen anyway. Line 5, 12:41 a.m. Duration 002. And in that instant, I realized it had never needed me to pick up. It had always been recording, always watching, always waiting. And I was trapped in its rhythm, counting each warped, frantic call as it learned me, as it learned how to reach me. The distorted whisper rose again, barely audible over the hum. Soon you will... My hands shook. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But somewhere in the static, I swore I heard my own voice reply. The monitors hummed low, a steady vibration that seemed to pulse through my chest. I stared at the screen, at the logs piling up in neat columns, and tried to make sense of it. Every line, every timestamp, every frantic call. It had a pattern, a rhythm I couldn't ignore. My hands shook as I reached for the receiver. Line 5. Again, the voice came through, frantic, broken, warped with static. Help, can't stop. It was all familiar. Too familiar. I pressed the hook to my ear, bracing for the chaos of distortion, and then it hit me like a punch to the gut. The words, the cadence, the panic. They weren't just familiar. They were mine. My voice, trembling and fractured, carried from someplace I hadn't yet been, some moment I hadn't yet lived. I dropped the receiver, stomach tightening. My reflection in the darkened window across the room stared back, pale and tense, lips moving silently as if echoing the calls. The realization clawed at me. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a glitch. It was me, from the future, or maybe from somewhere else entirely. My own voice had become a warning, a signal, a fragment of time leaking back to haunt me. The phone rang again. I didn't reach for it, but the monitor logged it anyway. Line 5, call received, 2:03 a.m., duration 0:03. I could hear the frantic syllables, faint now, almost teasing. Help, can't find. And then, you... My breath caught. The words weren't just coming through the receiver. They were in the room with me, vibrating in the air, pressing against my chest. My chair creaked as I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the desk. Each distorted echo sounded closer, sharper, more personal. Somewhere deep in my mind, a question screamed, how can I be the caller and the responder at the same time? I opened the log file, scrolling frantically. Every entry on line 5 was a time-stamped panic, my own voice captured with perfect precision. I couldn't have typed these. I hadn't. And yet, every word matched my inflections, my half-whisper anxieties, even the subtle hesitation I always try to hide. It was me, recording me, calling me back across time. The distortion increased, stretching syllables, breaking words into ragged fragments. Hill, sie can't stop, why you. The static rolled in waves, almost like breathing, almost like the room itself was alive, feeding on the panic embedded in my own voice. I could feel it in my chest, a vibration that matched the stutter of the words. I tried to speak, tried to say something, anything, to break the loop. Who is this? I croaked. My own voice answered before I could stop it. It's me from later. I can't stop. Help. My hands dropped in my lap. The chair felt heavier now, the air thicker, like the room itself was pressing in, waiting for the next syllable. The logs flickered. Line 5, duration 0:02:04:003. Each call shorter than the last, but sharper, more urgent. The pattern made no sense, and yet I understood it perfectly. The calls were moving forward in time even as I listened to them in the present. My own future panic was bleeding into now. I leaned back, staring at the monitors, trying to catch a glimpse of reality. The office seemed to bend subtly, shadows stretching unnaturally across the desks. My reflection wavered in the window, not perfectly aligned with my movements. And from somewhere just out of reach came the faintest whisper, "You have to listen." My stomach turned as I realized the voice wasn't just me, it was guiding me, warning me, or maybe dragging me towards something I couldn't yet comprehend. I picked up the receiver again, trembling, and the voice sharpened closer, insistent. "Don't ignore this, you'll..." The line went dead. I held it to my ear, straining to catch any hint of sound, any clue. Silence. But then, in the static of the monitors, I heard it again, low, warped, unmistakable. My own voice calling, panicked, reaching backward through time. I realized I was no longer just a dispatcher. I was a listener trapped in my own timeline, a witness to my own fear before it had even happened. Every call, every distortion, every log was a breadcrumb I hadn't yet followed. And yet, the more I resisted, the more insistent it became. The calls didn't wait. They didn't pause. They didn't forgive. I sank into my chair, pressing my face into my hands. The screen glowed with the next log. Line 5, 2:15 a.m., duration 0:03. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, matching the stutter of the incoming syllables. I'm here. The voice carried urgency, desperation, but also a strange familiarity, a comfort twisted into horror. And then it hit me fully, a wave of comprehension that made the chair creak beneath me. The calls were not random. They were instructions, warnings. The future me, trapped in panic, was trying to guide the present me, trying to prevent something. Something I hadn't yet seen, hadn't yet understood, but was coming. The monitors flickered, a brief blackout. When the screens returned, the logs had changed. The words were clearer now. Line 5, call received 2:16 a.m., duration 0:05. The message repeated itself, the distortion less, urgency high. Don't wait, don't stop. My chest tightened. Every instinct screamed at me. The line wasn't just a voice. It was a lifeline, or a trap. I pressed the receiver again. My voice, trembling, whispered, What do I do? And the reply, unmistakable, came through with terrifying clarity. Listen, falling out, the static pulsed, matching my heartbeat. The words were mine, but they weren't mine. Not yet. I leaned back, realizing I was both the caller and the listener. The past and the future entwined in a loop I couldn't break. Every word I heard, every distorted syllable, was a fragment of me trying to survive. And the more I understood, the more certain I became. If I didn't act, the future me, the panicked, desperate voice, would never exist. The line rang again, final in its urgency. I picked up, voice barely a whisper. I'm listening. And in the static clarity, you must see before the message cut off. The monitors glowed, blank logs blinking at me, and the room exhaled with a pressure I could feel in my bones. Somewhere beyond the edges of reason, I knew the next call would change everything. Not just the logs, not just the voice, me, the timeline, my reality. And I was ready, or maybe I wasn't, but I had no choice. The calls would continue. My voice, future me, was waiting, and I had to answer. The screens went black all at once, and my stomach sank before my brain could catch up. One moment I was scrolling through routine calls, the hum of monitors filling the room. The next, everything froze. No flicker, no reboot, just complete, suffocating silence from the machines. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I tried moving the mouse. Nothing. Then the screens blinked once, twice, and settled on a single glaring code, E99X. It wasn't any of the manuals, none of the reference sheets I had memorized over months of night shifts. My pulse jumped as I stared. The letters seemed to vibrate, slightly, almost mocking me. The hum from the monitors had stopped entirely, leaving me with the sound of my own ragged breathing. I leaned closer, eyes scanning the digits. Why now? Why this code? Every instinct screamed that I should call for IT, pull the backup system, do something, but the phones were dead too. The silence pressing on me like a weight, thick and cold. I felt my chest tighten as the realization sank in. I was completely alone, cut off, staring at something I had no frame to understand. The monitors flickered again, subtle this time. Shadows of previous logs danced across the screen, but nothing made sense. Then the code shifted. A small number had appeared beneath it, 147. The timestamp wasn't current. It was from 2 hours earlier. I hadn't noticed it at first, but now it throbbed in the corner of my eye. Impossible and deliberate. I reached out, almost afraid to touch the screen. The moment my fingers brushed the glass, a chill shot through me. The lights in the office dimmed, just slightly, but enough to make the shadows behind me stretch unnaturally. And then I heard it, a soft metallic tapping, like fingers drumming on a desk somewhere in the room behind me. I spun in my chair. Empty, nothing. My own breath rattled in my ears. The tapping continued, slow, deliberate, and in perfect rhythm with the blinking of the E99X code. My mind tried to rationalize. Maybe a wiring short, a loose vent, anything that could explain a sound. But my gut knew better. The tapping had intention. It was watching, waiting, marking time. I returned my gaze to the monitors. The code had changed again. Now there was a second line, scrolling beneath it in a faint gray font. Do not respond. My fingers itched to type something, anything, but the keyboard didn't respond. Panic clawed at me. Why would a system, any system, tell me not to respond? What would happen if I did? Then the monitors flickered differently, showing glimpses of faces in the corner of each screen. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the shadows, reflections of my own eyes in the glass. But they weren't mirrors. They were fleeting. Faces of people I didn't know, mouths moving silently, staring. None of them registered on the security feeds. None of them had ever entered the building. I felt a tremor of vertigo, like the room itself was breathing, expanding and contracting around me. My chair creaked under my weight. I stood abruptly, taking slow steps back toward the door, only to realize the handle wouldn't budge. Not locked, not jammed, just unresponsive. A barrier that wasn't there before, or maybe it always been there and I hadn't noticed. The tapping behind me intensified, and with it, a soft, mechanical whispering echoed from the monitors. Indistinct words at first, fragments. "You were on time." The air seemed charged, electric, but also heavy with something viscous, something watching from just beyond perception. My pulse raced. I wanted to cover my ears, run, scream, but my body refused orders. I turned back to the screen. The faces had multiplied now, hundreds pressed into tiny frames along the edges. Their eyes glinted faintly in the flickering glow. And then one of them spoke clearly, voice low and guttural through the speakers I hadn't realized were active. "You're next. You can't leave." I staggered backward. The office lights dimmed again. My reflection in the glass appeared briefly, distorted, and then a second version of myself flickered behind me. My chest heaved. I didn't remember moving, but the shadowy figure mirrored my fear perfectly. And then the monitors changed again. The code blinked a warning. E99X, activate or disappear. My mind spun. Activate what? Disappear where? Each scenario I imagined was worse than the last, twisting my stomach into knots. The tapping slowed, deliberate now, almost satisfied. I realized in the same heartbeat that it was counting, timing something I could not yet understand. I swallowed hard and focused on the monitor. The scrolling line beneath the warning code had changed. This time it was a map of the office. My office, but the layout was slightly off. Hallways extended where none existed. Doors led to empty black voids. And in each corridor, tiny blinking dots marked positions. Moving, always converging on me. I wanted to look away. I wanted to shut everything down. But I couldn't. My fingers itched to press something. Anything to regain control, to break the lockdown. And then the tapping stopped. Silence. The room held its breath. And then the monitors pulsed once. A single word appeared bold and red. Alone. My knees buckled. The word was simple, but it carried weight. Not alone in the room, not physically, but alone in time. Alone against something that had infiltrated every system I depended on, every line of communication, every safeguard I believed I had. Alone in a sequence I didn't understand. I tried to reason through it, tried to imagine a rational explanation. Virus, hacking, malfunction. But the faces, the whispers, the movement of the dots on the distorted map, they defied explanation. Something had mapped me, watched me, anticipated my every motion. The monitors pulsed again. Another code appeared beneath E99X. Follow or wait. My mind recoiled. Follow what? Wait for whom? Every instinct screamed that waiting meant death or something worse. But following offered no assurance either. And then I saw it. A blinking cursor appeared in the corner of the screen. My username already logged in. But beneath it, a message typed itself, letter by letter, slow, deliberate, almost alive. I am you, and you are me. Do not break the loop. My hands flew to the keyboard, but nothing worked. The tapping had returned, soft, insistent, counting down now. I realized I had been caught in something cyclical, something outside of normal rules. Time, space, reality, maybe all three, had been around this code. Around me, the office lights dimmed further. Shadows pooled in corners. The faces on the monitors pressed closer, their silent mouths forming words I couldn't read. My pulse pounded in rhythm with the countdown of the tapping. The screens flickered one last time. E99X remained. The words beneath it shifted. Choose or be erased. And for the first time in my life, staring at machines I had trusted for years, I realized the choice wasn't about me anymore. It was about survival, and understanding that the system had never been for communication. It had been for observation, for testing, for control, and it was waiting for my move. I took a deep breath, fingers trembling, and prepared to make the impossible decision. The first call came like a whisper against my eardrum, faint but insistent. Cutting to the quiet hum of monitors, I checked the dispatcher console. No units available. Every badge, every officer, every car listed as off-duty, out of service, or unreachable. Yet the calls didn't stop. They kept coming, piling up faster than any human could answer. I stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Numbers flashing red, timestamps overlapping, lines blinking like heartbeats on life support. Every call seemed normal at first. Someone trapped in a ditch, a domestic disturbance. But as I clicked to the logs, the descriptions twisted into impossible shapes. Houses that didn't exist. Streets that had been demolished years ago. The voices, they all sounded panicked, and yet none of them matched any of our recorded lines. I dialed the nearest unit. Busy. Every channel. I tried the backup radio. The old analog lines. Silence. Nothing. The calls kept stacking. I could feel the panic rising in my chest. A tide I could not stop. Every new call seemed closer, louder, more urgent. The voices overlapped in my head. A chorus of fear that no one else could hear. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes, willing the system to reset. Maybe it was a glitch, a freak software crash, but the feeling in my gut told me otherwise. I felt watched, and then I realized the calls weren't just coming in. They were following a pattern, each one pinged in a precise sequence, almost as if the lines themselves were alive, organizing themselves around me. A new alert popped up, a child screaming, lost in the woods somewhere I didn't recognize. Coordinates led to an abandoned lot outside the city, fenced and overgrown. No officer was available. I could see her on the feed, fleeting glimpses. Hair plastered to her forehead, eyes wide with terror, and I knew impossibly that she was looking straight at me through the screen. My stomach dropped. I had to help, but I couldn't. The next call was a man pinned under a collapsed beam. The description was exacting. Every detail mirrored a report from 2 years ago, a tragedy I had read about in old logs. But this time, the man's face was blurred in the recording, twisting as he reached for someone who wasn't there. I heard my own voice in his cry, distant and distorted. My fingers shook over the keyboard. Was this a memory? A warning? Or something worse? Something deliberate? Every alert added another layer of dread. The room itself seemed to pulse with each new line. Lights flickered across the consoles, shadows stretching impossibly across the walls. And with each flash, I saw them, figures standing at the edge of the room, or maybe just reflections. I couldn't tell. They disappeared every time I blinked. I tried to prioritize the calls, focus on the ones that mattered most. But as I selected a line, it vanished, replaced by another, more frantic, more desperate. The system itself seemed to mock me. My training, my instincts, my years behind the console meant nothing here. The world outside had stopped existing. All that remained was a flood of voices, the blinking coordinates, and the unyielding message. No unit available. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. Time had stopped behaving normally. Some calls repeated exactly, as if trapped in a loop. Others contradicted themselves, describing the same location in different ways. I began hearing the whispers between calls, faint and indecipherable, but unmistakably human. Someone or something was speaking to the system, guiding it, or maybe guiding me. I clicked on another line. A woman screaming for help inside what appeared to be the station itself. Her coordinates mapped to this room. I froze. The cameras confirmed it. Empty office. Chairs pushed back, monitors flickering. But the voice, it was hers, shrill with panic, calling my name. My breath caught. I twisted toward the door, half expecting to see her standing there. But nothing, just the hum of electronics. Then the monitors began to blink in sequence, almost like footsteps pacing toward me. Every screen lit in succession, each displaying a different scenario. Fires, floods, assaults, but all with one constant. The people inside were watching me, or I was watching them. The line between observer and observed blurred until I couldn't tell which side I was on. A sudden alert pulled me from the spiral of panic. The code flashed E66, unknown and urgent. The system appended a single note: respond or repeat. I understood immediately. This wasn't a normal code. The system was forcing a choice. Help these calls, or become trapped in their endless loop. My chest tightened. I had no units. I had no control. I tried to shut everything down, power cycle consoles, pull the breakers. Nothing worked. Each attempt triggered a new call, louder and closer, echoing through the office speakers. My hands trembled, my head pounded, and then the whispers merged into one voice, clear and cold. You cannot save them all, but you must try. The floor beneath me felt heavier, the air thick. I realized the calls weren't just data. They were warnings, prayers, demands, and maybe, impossibly, they were alive. Each line carried weight. Each voice pressed against reality like water through a sieve. I tried to answer, but no command registered. Every click, every keystroke seemed to feed the system instead of controlling it. I leaned closer to the monitor, scanning the map of the city. Red dots pulsed everywhere. Streets, houses, abandoned lots, all marked, all urgent, and yet every officer remained unavailable. Even the backup channels listed as offline. I began to feel like the city itself had vanished, leaving only the cries and the blinking red markers. Then a new anomaly appeared, one moving against a grid. A single blue icon, the only active officer. I clicked frantically, desperate. The screen froze. Coordinates updated. The blue wasn't moving through streets. It was moving through walls, floors, empty space. Toward me. My breath caught. I hadn't called anyone. Hadn't even selected the unit. And yet it came. The tapping started again, soft, deliberate, from somewhere in the office. I didn't want to look, but I had to. Shadows shifted behind the consoles, stretching unnaturally, coiling closer with every flicker of the lights. I realized the system wasn't just tracking calls. It was tracking me, counting my reactions, measuring my fear, preparing me for something. Another alert appeared. This one was personal. Coordinates blinked directly on my desk. My phone, my chair, my monitor, everything was mapped. The red hovered over me, and beneath it, a message scrolled slowly across the screen. Alone, all alone, they are unavailable. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shut my eyes and pretend this wasn't real, but the voices wouldn't stop. The calls poured in faster than I could comprehend, overlapping, drowning out rational thought. And then, in the cacophony, I heard it clearly, a single phrase whispered directly into my ear, not through the speakers, not through the phones, but inside my head. You're the unit now. The monitors blinked once more. Every officer offline, every line urgent, every voice demanding attention. And somewhere beneath the chaos, the system waited, patient and cold, counting down, counting on me. I realized then with a clarity that chilled me to the bone. There were no units available because I was a unit, and the flood of calls, the flood of fear was testing me, watching me, deciding if I could survive the night. I gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles white, heart hammering. One choice remained. Do nothing and disappear into the endless stream of voices, or respond blindly and step into the impossible. And as the tapping grew louder, the red dots multiplied and the whispers pressed closer, I knew the night had just begun. I felt at the moment the lights flickered for the third time. Not the hum of a faulty circuit, not the old building settling. It was something else, a weight in the air, thick and cold, pressing down on me, moving with me. I told myself it was nerves, exhaustion, the aftermath of too many calls with no units available. But when the monitors blinked in unison and the emergency code flashed again, E66, I realized the threat wasn't outside. It had already made its way inside. The hum of the computers shifted. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to make my skin crawl. I leaned closer, trying to track the source, and that's when I noticed it. A shadow, long and narrow, sliding across the back wall behind the rows of consoles. My pulse spiked. It wasn't moving like a person, not exactly. It stretched and leaned, like the darkness itself had learned to walk. I froze. The monitors in front of me flashed coordinates for every active call. Coordinates that now seemed closer. I turned slowly, trying to catch a glimpse of anything tangible. Nothing. Just a faint reflection of my own face in the black screens, pale and wide-eyed. And yet, I felt it circling, watching. The temperature dropped, my breath puffing in misty clouds I could see in the dim emergency lights. I reached for the phone to call security. Deadline, no dial tone, every internal line dead. My own voice echoed back from the speaker, distorted, but unmistakably my own, whispering words I hadn't spoken yet. Then the tapping started, light, deliberate, somewhere behind me. I didn't dare look. My hands trembled over the keyboard, trying to access the backup cameras. The feeds came alive one by one, but something was wrong. The angles shifted in impossible ways. Hallways stretching into darkness, doors opening into rooms that shouldn't exist, walls bending like paper. And each camera, each feed, seemed to be pointed directly at me. A new alert popped up. Not a call this time. Just coordinates inside the building. My desk, my chair, the office I'd been occupying all night. My heart lurched. The cursor on the screen blinked once, twice, then scrolled a message I hadn't typed. You can't hide. I swung around. Empty. The office was still. The air heavy, vibrating with anticipation. I thought I heard a whisper, something brushing past my ear, cold fingers against my skin. I spun again, my chair squealing across the tile, and that's when I noticed it. The back door, the one I always assumed was locked, slowly creaking open on its own. I wanted to run to escape, but the monitors called me back. Every camera was alive now, showing corners of the building I didn't recognize. Hallways twisting back on themselves, doors appearing where none should exist. And in every frame, shadows moved against the walls, subtle at first, then more deliberate. One paused, seemed to look right into the lens. And in that moment, I knew it was aware of me. I tried to call 911 from my personal phone. Dead. Texts, emails, even emergency alerts, all frozen mid-send. It was as if the building had swallowed every connection to the outside world. The red lights on the consoles blinked faster, pulsing in sync with my heartbeat. I realized then, the emergency wasn't outside. The emergency was me. It had infiltrated every system, every line, every screen I relied on. Then a whisper in static, faint at first, grew louder. My own voice again, frantically repeating coordinates I didn't recognize. But the fear behind it wasn't mine. It was mine for moments I hadn't yet lived. I stumbled back, knocking a chair over. The sound echoed unnaturally, stretching down corridors that shouldn't exist. I pressed my palms to my ears, tried to block it out. But the building had learned me. Every reaction, every fear. It knew. A sudden movement on the side monitors drew my gaze. One of the shadows, tall, elongated, stood just beyond the door to the server room. It didn't move toward me at first. It just watched. I couldn't look away. And then the shadow stepped closer. But as it did, it didn't walk. The floor beneath it didn't bend, didn't make a sound. It phased, slipping through walls, furniture, monitors, as if the laws of reality didn't apply. I bolted to the door, trying to escape, but the hallway shifted. What should have been a straight path twisted like a maze. Walls folding inward, ceilings stretching upward. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered violently, casting jagged shadows that danced and merged with the figure moving behind me. My phone fell from my pocket, cracked on the tile, and the screens around me all went dark except for one. One camera feed showing me from above, standing frozen, chair overturned, every movement mirrored. I realized with a chill that I wasn't alone. Not really. The shadow was everywhere at once. It occupied every reflection, every monitor, every dark corner. It moved in the building and through the building. And worst of all, it moved through me. I felt it brush my shoulder as I ran. Cold, weightless, and impossible. My own scream caught in my throat as I spun around. Empty hallway. Nothing. But the monitors glowed red. Then a voice, unmistakably human, cutting to the static. You can't leave. It wasn't coming from the speakers. Not from the monitors. It was in my head, right next to my ear, soft and deliberate. I froze. The whispers of every call I hadn't been able to respond to, the trapped voices, the desperate cries, merged into one. They weren't outside. They weren't victims waiting for help. They were the building. The building was alive, and it had claimed the emergency, the system, and now me. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to slow my breathing, trying to think. Every console blinked in rhythm of my pulse. One by one, the monitors showed snapshots of my desk, my chair, my reflection, every angle occupied by shadows I hadn't seen before. They weren't creeping toward me anymore. They were everywhere I looked. A soft tapping began again, from inside the walls. I realized it was following me, counting my steps, predicting my reactions. I tried the emergency door again. Locked. The key card reader sparked, then went dead. Every window, every exit, every potential escape was gone. The building itself had rewritten its geometry around me. And then, faint at first, the monitors flickered to life with a new message. Respond or remain. No units available. No backup. No way out. Just me, the shadows, and the building. The emergency had been inside all along. I sank to the floor, head against the cool tile, trying to process it. The shadow approached once more, phased into the monitors and the walls until it hovered above me. I could feel the air condense around it, heavy and cold. I had no weapons, no allies, nothing but my own thoughts, and a relentless awareness that everything I had trusted was gone. I knew then, with terrifying clarity, that the building had chosen me. I was the final point of contact, the last unit available, and the emergency wasn't something I could solve. It was something I had to survive, something that had been waiting inside all along, patient, watching, learning every fear, every instinct. The tapping increased, faster, deliberate. The monitors flashed coordinates that didn't exist, rooms that defied physics. The shadow leaned closer, impossible angles folding, stretching, twisting. And somewhere deep inside me, a thought surfaced. I wasn't responding to calls anymore. The calls were responding to me, and the building waited. Silent, patient, infinite, watching. The door behind me shifted slightly. Just a crack. I didn't move. I couldn't. And in the faint glow of the monitors, I saw it. Something waiting in that crack, beyond the reach of logic or reason. The emergency wasn't outside. The emergency wasn't coming. The emergency was here, and it had been here all along. The file was unmarked, just a raw audio dump sitting in the evidence archive. Nobody knew it existed. At least, nobody I trusted. When I hit play, the first thing I noticed was the hum, not the usual equipment buzz, or the low drone of a city at night. This hum was thick, almost liquid, vibrating through the speakers and into my chest. I sat back, unease crawling along my spine, as the faint crackle of a voice came through. At first, it was just static, then words garbled with human. Don't leave here. I paused it, rewound, listened again. It sounded familiar, like a dispatcher I knew, someone calm, professional. But the tone was wrong, frantic, shaky, terrified. And the thing that really unsettled me, after a moment, I realized the voice wasn't just in the recording. It was echoing something I'd said before, words I remembered whispering during a night shift that had burned into my memory. The second time I played it, I noticed a background noise. At first, it was subtle, footsteps, maybe a chair scraping. But layered under that, faintly, was breathing, shallow, irregular, not on the recording itself. It was in my room now, or so it seemed, following my own heartbeat. My pulse sped up. I kept rewinding, trying to find the source. The voice repeated, almost exactly, a pattern I remember from calls on the night the dispatch center closed. Code E33, repeat, did not respond. I hadn't heard that in years. Not a call, not a log. But here it was, carved into the recording like a ghost frozen in time. The hum underneath began to rise, almost imperceptibly at first, then louder and somehow warmer. Not just sound, pressure. It felt like the room was leaning in on me. I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was just old audio degrading, some glitch, but then came the next part. A soft shuffle, almost a whisper, a syllable cut off mid-word. Then another, a pause, and then, "You shouldn't have found this." My hands trembled. The voice was no longer just in the headphones. My own breathing had synced with it, shallow and fast, mirrored by the shadow of panic that crept over me. I leaned closer to the waveform, trying to isolate the noises. The hum morphed into static that carried faint rhythms, almost like footsteps pacing. Not a hallway, not a room, an entire building, maybe, and layered on top, the voice repeated. This time, clearer, more insistent. It's inside the center, don't leave. My stomach dropped. The center had been closed for years. Vacant, empty, except for what had been left behind. I grabbed a notebook, jotting down everything I could hear. Each playback revealed new details I hadn't noticed before. A chair squeaking, the faint scuff of shoes on linoleum, the subtle whisper of someone or something breathing just behind the speaker. The voice paused occasionally, letting the silence stretch thin, like it was testing me, measuring my reaction. I could almost see the outline of a figure crouched behind the recording itself, leaning closer every time I blinked. I tried to stop, really tried, but the file drew me back. The next section revealed something impossible. My own voice, calm at first, guiding a caller through a routine panic. But overlaid on that was panic I hadn't felt yet, not during that night. A terror I only experienced now, listening. The words overlapped. One fear collided with another, creating a discordant rhythm I could feel in my chest. It was then I noticed a pattern. Each time the voice repeated, something changed. Subtle at first, a syllable elongated, a whisper shifted pitch. Then more. Words I hadn't said before, coordinates I didn't recognize, instructions that made no sense. But the underlying terror was consistent. Someone, something, was trying to communicate, or warn me, or maybe trap me in this loop of sound. I leaned back, heart hammering. The audio feed had more than voices. It had presence. Every playback made me feel watched. Not through the speakers, not through my eyes, but through my mind, like the recording itself had memory, awareness, and a pulse. I heard a low scrape, maybe my chair on the floor, but I hadn't moved. The voice whispered again, "Do not leave," and I realized with a cold shock that I hadn't moved for several minutes. My body had frozen, locked in place by fear I couldn't name. I skipped forward, desperate for silence. But the further I went, the more distorted it became. Words slurred into each other, breaths mingled with static, and the faint outline of a rhythm emerged. A pulse, irregular, echoing my own heartbeat. Then, faintly, almost beneath the layers, laughter, not cheerful, high, clipped, sharp, familiar, mine, only wrong. The longer I listened, the more the boundaries blurred. I began hearing things not on the recording at all. Creaks in the floor, doors opening and closing, whispers that weren't part of the audio. I could feel a presence moving in the space around me, invisible but deliberate. It mirrored the rhythm in the recording, like it had learned the fear embedded in my voice and was replaying it back to me. Louder, sharper, more intimate, and then unmistakable, a gasp, my own gasp, recorded in the past, or maybe the future. I froze listening. The file continued, layering my voice over itself, faster, panicked, giving instructions I hadn't thought to give yet. I realized, stomach tightening, that the dispatcher in the recording wasn't just a ghost. It was me, or a version of me. And every new distortion, every new fear, every new whispered word was pointing to something I had yet to face. I tried to shut it down, force it to stop, hit the keyboard, unplug the speakers, even yanked the headphones from my ears. Nothing. The hum persisted, the whispers persisted, and the faint, eerie steps continued. The file had grown beyond audio. It had become the room itself. It occupied the space I was in, mirrored my every heartbeat, and haunted the edges of my vision. The final section came, and my stomach sank. The voice, distorted beyond recognition now, repeated coordinates I didn't know, warnings I didn't understand, and then finally my own words. It's already inside. Don't move. My heart stopped, not metaphorically, literally. A cold weight settled over my chest. I realized I hadn't moved, not even my eyes, since the first playback, and the file wasn't finished. It looped, cycling back to the start, but each time a new detail emerged. Footsteps closer, whispers sharper, panic layering over panic. I couldn't leave. I couldn't stop listening. It had me, and the more I played it, the more I understood. The dispatch center had closed, yes, but some final shift, some final presence had remained, and now, through this recovered audio, it had found me. I sat in silence, headphones cold against my ears, the hum vibrating to the floor, the whisper of my own voice crawling into my skull. The recording ended, or so I thought. But then, just as I was about to breathe, a single syllable came through, faint, deliberate, and impossibly close. Again, and I knew I wasn't listening to a recording anymore. I was reliving it. The line clicked before I even had a chance to brace myself. At first, it was quiet, just a murmur under the hum of the equipment, like a low wind curling around a corner. Then came the voice, soft, desperate, and wrong in ways I couldn't name. Please don't come in. I paused, heart hammering. The tape was labeled with nothing but a date, a time, nothing else. I pressed play again, slower this time, listening to the static settle into something almost intelligible. The voice repeated, more insistent. Do not answer them. I frowned. Every instinct screamed to shut off. But something deeper, the part of me that had listened to countless emergency calls, kept me tethered. It was familiar. It was my own voice. Or at least a version of me. Shaky, hurried, terrified. And beneath it, almost imperceptible, a faint rustle, like someone moving behind a desk. The first few seconds passed like minutes. Then came the knock. Slow, deliberate, almost casual, but too heavy for any visitor I would expect at this hour. My pulse jumped as I realized the recording captured it. Not just a sound effect. Real wood against metal, vibrating through the tape, echoing in the dead space of the empty center. I leaned closer, squinting at the waveform, tracing the rising tension of the audio. The voice became clearer, panicked, whispering instructions I hadn't yet thought to give. Stay quiet, they can hear you. It was my voice, but not mine. Not from now, from later, or before. I couldn't tell. Time fractured in the room, splintered like the static on the speakers. Another knock, louder this time, closer, and then a sigh. Deep, slow, deliberate. It filled the room, not just the speakers. My own breath caught, matching the rhythm, shallow, irregular. The voice continued, repeating the same phrase, each time more distorted, warped almost grotesquely. Do not answer. I tried to rewind, to catch details I might have missed. And that's when I noticed it. Between the words, beneath the static, a second voice. Fainter, almost human, almost mine, but twisted, broken. It whispered my name, quiet but certain, layering over the original in a way that made my chest tighten. Then came the footsteps, not on the tape itself, but in my mind, or maybe the space around me, slow, circling, precise. One step in front of another. The voice warned me again, urgent now, pleading, do not open the door. I could feel it then. Presence, cold, deliberate, moving in the shadows of the room I sat in, mirroring the fear captured on the tape. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to unplug, escape, run. But the deeper part, the part that always listened, always answered, couldn't turn away. The recording skipped, just for a moment, and when it resumed, I realized the line wasn't just replaying. It was escalating. The voice repeated in tighter, faster bursts, breaths punctuating every word. Do not answer, do not answer, do not. And the other voice whispered over it, urgent and insistent. They're inside now. I froze. My room, my apartment. Even the air around me seemed to shiver. The tape had crossed its own boundary. It wasn't just history. It was active, alive, resonating in the present. I wanted to shut it off. I wanted to scream. But my body betrayed me. Hands frozen on the desk. Eyes locked on the wavering waveforms that pulsed like a heartbeat. The knocks came again, slow, methodical. The tape played the same words over and over. But each repetition shifted slightly. Distorted consonants, stretched vowels, subtle background noises that hadn't been there before. Something unseen moved, brushing just at the edge of perception, following the rhythm. And then it clicked, not in my ears, but in my chest. The recording captured me, yes, but also everything else. The panic, the fear, The presence waiting outside the room I wasn't anymore. It had trapped the sound, trapped me, mirrored every choice I would make if I answered. Every misstep, every thought of opening a door or checking a hallway, it was already anticipated, already recorded, already playing back. My stomach dropped as I realized what that meant. The call wasn't real. Or maybe it was. I couldn't tell. All I knew was that every repetition brought me closer to the moment I shouldn't have survived. And with each repetition, the presence outside, inside, and the recording in me grew more certain, more deliberate. I swallowed hard, listening to the whispers layer over themselves. Do not answer. Do not answer. And then the first real scream, unmistakable. Not the distorted echo of panic I expected, but pure, jagged in mine. It tore through the speakers, through my chest, and froze my blood in place. The tape continued, relentless, as if mocking the impossibility of silence. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't step away. Every microsecond revealed new horrors. Soft footsteps moving closer. The chair scraping. Whispers too quiet to catch but impossible to ignore. And then, over it all, the distorted certainty of my own voice, screaming at me from a moment I hadn't lived yet. My mind tried to rationalize. It was a recording, just a tape, something trapped in the equipment, a prank, a glitch. But the detail, the breaths, the footsteps, the intentional distortion, was too deliberate, too precise. Someone had recorded this, or something had. And it wasn't just relaying the past. It was telling me what was coming. I pressed rewind again, desperate for clarity. And there it was, the final layer I hadn't noticed. Beneath the panic, beneath the distortion, beneath the whispers and the knocks, there was silence, just long enough for my own pulse to pound in my ears. Then, faintly, impossibly, the voice spoke clearly one last time. You answered, and now they're here. The room went still, not silence, but a pressure that pressed against my chest, filling every corner, every shadow. I could feel the tape's rhythm in my bones, the echo of footsteps circling, the breath of something that shouldn't exist. And then the whisper, soft and near, unmistakably close, do not answer again. I knew then that the recording had never been about history. It had always been about me. And answering it, listening to it, trying to understand it, had drawn it closer, closer than I wanted, closer than I could fight. And yet I couldn't stop. Because if I did, if I unplugged, if I looked away, I would never know what happened next. The tape played again, the words repeating, layering fear over fear. Do not answer, do not answer, do not answer. And I realized with a cold certainty, the final moment was coming, not in the recording, not in the past, but in the space I occupied now. I had answered, and now it was here,